subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Better than others, Potter. Malfoy turned to Harry and said, "You don't want to make friends with people who are different, do you?" Ivan felt that the old Malfoy was probably jealous. Although the Weasleys are pure-blood traitors, they are really fertile. One family, nearly 10 wizards. How can this be played? Maybe the Weasleys are poor, but their ability to have many children will definitely make the purebloods in the wizarding world envious. I can help you with this. Ignoring the bystanders around him, Malfoy reached out to Harry, but Harry didn't answer him. I think I can tell who is different myself. Thank you. Draco Malfoy's pale cheeks did not turn red, but only a faint blush. Watching this scene, Ivan could roughly guess what Malfoy was thinking. This kid should have come to make friends with Harry, but because he didn't know how to get along with others, he seemed aggressive. In Ivan's words, it was tsundere. He clearly wanted to make friends with others, but he had to act superior, as if making friends with you was a charity for you. So, Malfoy, who was angry and embarrassed, threw his father's instructions behind his head. "If I were you, Potter, I would be especially careful." Malfoy said slowly, "You should be polite, otherwise you will follow the same path as your parents. If you hang out with people like the Weasleys or Hagrid, you will also be affected." Harry and Ronald stood up, and Ronald's face was as red as his red hair. "Say it again." Ronald couldn't stand being insulted like this, and it involved curses about his parents, family, and bloodline. He clenched his fist tightly, wishing he could smash the mouth on Malfoy's stinky face. "Oh, you want to fight, don't you?" Malfoy sneered. He didn't care about the anger of the two people at all. His father was the director of Hogwarts, and he was the heir of the Malfoy family. Even if it was the savior Harry Potter, so what? Others regarded him as the savior and received his favor, but the Malfoy family followed the Dark Lord. To be honest, Harry not only did not bring any benefits to the Malfoy family, but also ruined their investment in Voldemort. At this time, Malfoy had no idea how terrible Voldemort was and how humble the Malfoy family was. He only knew that the Death Eaters were handsome, and his father, who had been the right-hand man of the Dark Lord, was even greater. "Get out right now. You're not welcome here." Although Harry was a little scared. After all, he had never fought with anyone in his life, and he had always been bullied since he was a child. To be honest, Harry's heart was not as brave as his appearance, especially with Crabbe and Goyle standing next to Malfoy. These two guys are much bigger than him and Ronald. "Are you ordering me?" "Why? We won't be scared by the legendary savior." Malfoy was going to teach Harry Potter a lesson, and he noticed the snacks in the carriage. "We've eaten all the food, but you seem to have some here." As soon as he finished speaking, Goyle quickly reached out to take the chocolate frog next to Ronald. Seeing this scene, Hermione could no longer suppress her dissatisfaction and immediately prepared to step forward to defend Harry. Hermione saw the whole process, which was purely Malfoy's unilateral fault-finding. Harry did nothing wrong, and Ronald did the same. No one can stand being humiliated for no reason. "Are you going to fight with them?" Ivan asked Hermione curiously. The little witch looked back at him in surprise and said in disbelief, "How can we fight? That's wrong." Well, Hermione is a good kid. She just stopped the fight and told them that fighting is not good. However, before Hermione could act, Ronald in the carriage suddenly jumped forward. The next moment, Goyle screamed. This confused Ronald, who thought he didn't touch this guy at all. When they looked up, they saw a fat rat hanging on Goyle's finger. It was Ronald's pet rat, Scabbers. The sharp little teeth bit deeply into Goyle's flesh. Goyle screamed and waved his hands to shake off Scabbers. Crabbe and Malfoy retreated in fear when they saw this scene. Peter Pettigrew, Ivan's eyes narrowed slightly, but he quickly returned to normal. "Forget it. It has nothing to do with me. There is no need to make trouble for the time being." However, Ivan did not intend to get involved, but it did not mean that others would not notice him. "Is it funny?" Malfoy suddenly turned his head and stared at Hermione beside Ivan. The little witch was startled, and at the same time realized that her behavior of laughing secretly was very impolite. But the problem is that Malfoy and the other two took the initiative to provoke Harry, but now they were scared by a mouse, which surprised Hermione, who had high expectations for those pure-blooded little wizards. "Sorry, we didn't mean to laugh at you." Ivan stepped forward and stood in front of Hermione. He looked at Harry and Ronald in the carriage and introduced himself. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Harry Potter. I am Ivan Ambrosius." Compared to Malfoy's arrogance, Harry's impression of Ivan was obviously much better. "Hello." Harry extended his hand and shook hands with Ivan, which made Malfoy quite dissatisfied. They both came to make friends, but Harry's attitude towards Ivan was so different from his. The most important thing was that, even though he was still standing there, Ivan seemed to ignore him and started talking to Harry. Chapter 24. Naughty kid, just give him a beating enough. Malfoy stared at Ivan. "Who are you? Ambrosius? I have never heard of such a wizard family name." Ivan ignored Malfoy and asked Hermione to walk into Harry's compartment. Harry would not stop him, of course. He could see that Ivan was very friendly to him. As for Hermione, the little witch had just helped him repair his old glasses, and Harry had a very good first impression of her. "See you again, Harry." Hermione held Yumi and sat opposite Harry and Ronald. Yumi seemed to have noticed something and stared at the mouse Banban next to Ronald. "Hey, pay attention to your cat." Ronald quickly protected Banban, fearing that Yumi would pounce on his mouse and eat it. Yumi. Ivan knew Banban's true identity. Yumi's reaction was probably the same as Crookshank's in the original book, where the catkin bloodline reminded her that Pettigrew was not a good thing. However, Crookshanks was left by Hermione with Neville, so this task fell on Yumi. Meow. Yumi didn't know what was going on with Scabbers. She just silently warned her master that there was something wrong with this mouse, and she should be careful. "Don't worry about it, Yumi." Ivan didn't know cat language, but his meaning was clearly conveyed to Yumi, telling her not to act rashly. "Enough!" Suddenly, Malfoy outside the door growled with a gloomy face. Being ignored by Ivan and left aside by Harry, Malfoy had never suffered such humiliation. "Is this your answer, Harry Potter?" Malfoy said arrogantly. "Weasley's poor bastards, 2 mudbloods. You are just like your stupid parents, and sooner or later you will follow their old path." Harry rushed forward directly because of the inexplicable personal attack, which also involved his own parents. Malfoy was startled, but his left and right Kong, Goyle, and Crabbe stopped Harry in time. Ronald saw this and planned to help Harry with Scabbers. Disappointing. Ivan couldn't bear to watch it any longer, so he waved gently at Goyle and Crabbe. The next moment, the two were lifted up by an invisible force, and then, in Malfoy's horrified eyes, they flew backwards and fell outside the carriage with Malfoy. "Ah, this idiot! You're crushing me. Get up." The 3 of them were huddled together like a pile of pyramids, with Malfoy at the bottom. The weight of Goyle and Crabbe almost crushed him to death. "This." Harry and Ronald looked at each other, obviously not understanding what was going on. "You should learn to respect others." Ivan looked at Malfoy with a gloomy face, and he dragged his hand upwards, and the 3 little wizards screamed and floated up. "In addition, I don't want to hear the word just now for the 2nd time. Remember?" Ivan's tone was calm and gentle, but it sounded like the devil's whisper to Malfoy and the other 2, making them tremble. Voila! As Ivan lifted the magic, the 3 fell from the air, but because of their unstable footing, they stumbled and fell to the ground again. "Huh." Ivan shook his head in disappointment, snapped his fingers, and closed the door of the carriage before the seniors came over. On the other side, Harry and Ronald stood there blankly, watching the door of the carriage close automatically in front of them. With a bang, the 2 suddenly woke up from their confusion and then looked at the calm Ivan with an incredible look. "How did you do it?" Ronald sat back, tremblingly. "I mean, that just now, was it magic?" Although he was not targeted, Ronald was really scared by Ivan. He didn't even dare to look directly at Ivan now, and sat in a corner timidly, holding Banban in his arms, fearing that Ivan would be dissatisfied and kill his mouse. "What kind of stupid question is that?" Hermione covered her face subconsciously. She couldn't say that she had a good impression of Ronald. She could only say that she was disdainful, just like a top student facing a poor student. "Of course it's magic." "Wow." Harry looked at Ivan with admiration and said sincerely, "You are so amazing. Can I call you Ivan?" "Of course." Ivan smiled and said, Just now I used the levitation spell and the repulsion spell. They're not amazing spells. You can learn them in the first grade." As he said that, Ivan showed off in front of the two of them again, sorted out the snacks scattered on the ground, and let them fall between Harry and Ronald. Awesome. Ronald's praise for Ivan made Hermione very happy. She flattered him unabashedly. "Ivan is the best little wizard I have ever seen." "Ivan, don't you need a wand to cast magic?" Compared to Ronald, Harry noticed the key. He found that Ivan didn't take out his wand the whole time, but just waved it casually, and he did those magical things. "Wandless spell casting," Ronald exclaimed. "You can actually cast a spell without a wand." "What is that?" Harry had just entered the wizarding world and did not know the value of wandless spell casting. It was not until Hermione proudly explained the difficulty of this magic skill to the two of them that he suddenly realized it. This also led to Harry's admiration for Ivan even more. Not burdened by fame, Ivan nodded secretly. As expected of the protagonist of a fairy tale, the princess is kind and beautiful, and the knight is just and loyal. Of course, Ivan was not belittling Harry Potter. He was just sighing at Harry's excellent character. If someone else suddenly became a rich second-generation inheritor of a billionaire from an orphan, who dared to say that he could do better than Harry? Harry had enough wealth and was even more famous. But he did not lose himself because of this, but clearly realized his shortcomings. He is Harry, just Harry. He is not that powerful at all, and he doesn't even know magic. Instead of indulging in those illusory things, Harry wants to improve himself and prove himself. Well, it's not as bad as Hermione said. Ivan patted Hermione's head and straightened her messy hair, making the little witch blush and blush. Like Hermione, I come from the Muggle world. Ivan told the two of them his origins, while Hermione and Harry were extremely confused by Malfoy's behavior just now. The two asked Ivan what was going on with Malfoy and why he was so arrogant. "I've heard about his family," Ronald said gloomily. "They were the first group of people to return to us after the disappearance of the mysterious man." Chapter 25. The bad taste of adult wizards. They said they were controlled, but my father didn't believe it at all. Ronald, he said that Malfoy's father didn't find any excuses at all, and he easily fell to the side of the dark magic forces. Hearing that the Malfoy family was related to the Dark Lord, Harry showed disgust on his face, and Hermione was a little scared. The little witch came from a society ruled by law. In her opinion, the Malfoy family was like street bullies, always bullying ordinary people. She was afraid of being troubled by the Malfoy family, and she didn't want Ivan to be affected. "It's okay," Ivan smiled and said. "Hogwarts is the safest place in the whole country of England. There, the power of the Malfoy family is useless. As for the identity of the old Malfoy school director, this kind of thing is meaningless. Who in the whole of England doesn't know that Hogwarts is Dumbledore's territory? Only the second generation like Malfoy, who was spoiled by his parents, would think that he could do whatever he wanted in Hogwarts." "That's right," Ronald said. "Ivan is so powerful that he beat the evil Malfoy away in just a few moves. They should be afraid of you." Ivan's casual handling of Malfoy and his followers made Ronald like him more. "No fighting," Hermione interrupted directly. "We should abide by the school rules of Hogwarts, study hard, and go to teachers when we encounter difficulties instead of solving problems in a barbaric way." After that, Hermione looked at Ronald with a vigilant look, fearing that Ivan would be led astray by this rude barbarian. She had decided to stay away from Ronald. And Ivan, too. Hermione felt that she had an obligation to protect Ivan. Malfoy's words were actually not wrong. As the saying goes, if you keep company with a red man, you will be red, and if you keep company with a black man, you will be black. Hermione had already labeled Ronald as stupid, poor student, and reckless, and was determined not to let Ivan mix with such people. Ronald and Harry were embarrassed by Hermione's words. One of them lived in a cupboard under the stairs all year round, and the other was a fool who had only received family education before the age of 11. How could they understand Hermione's thoughts? "Is she your girlfriend?" Ronald looked like he was asking for help, and even Harry looked at Ivan for help. There was no way. The two of them really couldn't keep up with Hermione's train of thought and couldn't understand her so-called idea of being a good boy. "What?" Hermione jumped up excitedly. Her face flushed, and she glared at Ronald fiercely. The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train, and we will take you to school. At this time, the train began to broadcast the arrival of the station. Ivan, we should go back. Hermione, who was almost oppressed by the word girlfriend, immediately took Ivan's hand and prepared to leave. Before leaving, she reminded him, "You should also change into wizard robes quickly. Don't wait until you get off the bus to rush." Ivan gave Harry and Ronald a helpless look and then returned to his compartment with Hermione, leaving Harry and Ronald looking at each other. "I think they should be a couple." Ronald ate the candy, and Harry nodded. "Ivan is really amazing. Not only is he highly skilled in magic, but he also has a girlfriend." Although the two children don't know what a girlfriend is, they still understand that it's cool to have a girlfriend. And Ivan is so pitiful. Ronald hates Hermione. That Miss Beaver with big front teeth, the look in her eyes just now seems to treat us as idiots. Harry actually wanted to say that Hermione just treated Ronald as an idiot and was quite kind to him. But Ronald was Harry's first friend, and he didn't want to ruin their friendship. "Are you guys not done yet?" At some point, Hermione appeared outside the carriage again. She seemed to hear Ronald calling her Miss Beaver and was staring at him with cold eyes. "I forgot to ask you, are you ready for the Hogwarts entrance test? This is related to which college we will be assigned to." Hearing this, not only Ronald, but even Harry's face changed suddenly. Especially Ronald. Before coming to Hogwarts, he was scared by his two brothers. For a moment, Harry was so nervous that his stomach turned upside down. He saw Ronald's face turn pale under his freckles. The two stuffed the remaining candies into their pockets and followed the crowd in the aisle. What happened to them? Ivan, who had changed into wizard robes, saw Hermione come back and noticed the expressions of Harry and the others. He didn't understand what happened. Nothing. Hermione was not really trying to scare them, because even she herself was a little nervous. "Ivan, do you know the content of the entrance test?" "This." Ivan nodded and smiled. "I heard a little about it." "What is it? Is it difficult?" Hermione didn't expect Ivan to really know. "Where did you see it?" "I looked through a history of Hogwarts, and the content of the sorting was only briefly mentioned." Ivan knew the ambiguity here. It was just a bad taste of adult wizards. "With your ability, Hermione, you should consider which house to go to instead of worrying about whether you can pass." The two had discussed this issue before. Ivan didn't care, while Hermione was hesitant between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw. "What about you, Ivan?" "I could do either." Ivan didn't want to interfere with the sorting ceremony, which only happened once in a lifetime. If this experience was mixed with scheming and trickery, it would make his Hogwarts journey flawed. Therefore, Ivan's mentality was very casual. Anyway, it all depended on the sorting hat. No matter what the result was, Ivan could accept it. "My grandma wants me to go to Gryffindor." Neville, who was following behind the two, said timidly, like a little transparent, "But I just hope to pass this sorting ceremony. As for where I will be sorted, as long as it's not Slytherin, it's fine." The train slowed down and finally stopped. The little wizards pushed and shoved and rushed to the door and got off to a small, dark platform. The cold night air made everyone shiver. Hermione subconsciously moved closer to Ivan, as if this would keep her warmer. First-year students, come here." "Harry, come here, are you okay?" Accompanied by a thunderous shout from the front, Ivan and Hermione looked over. A huge bearded man holding an oil lamp appeared in front of them. It was Rubeus Hagrid, the keykeeper of Hogwarts. Chapter 26, lighting the way ahead. Good, so high. Hagrid suddenly appeared from the darkness, which really scared many young wizards. Ivan even found that Neville was sobbing softly. He shook his head helplessly and could only pat Neville's back like taking care of his younger brother, and comforted him not to worry too much about the sorting ceremony. Next, the team split here, and the senior students went to the other side to take the carriage to the auditorium, leaving a group of young wizards crowded here, waiting for Hagrid's arrangement. "Watch your feet." "Okay, come on, follow me." "First-year students, follow me." The rough voice plus Hagrid's loud voice. Every young wizard at the station can hear his words clearly. Ivan looked at the road ahead. It was a steep and narrow path, and the road was dark on both sides, which was a dense forest. Hermione and Neville on the left and right got closer. Not only them, all the young wizards were a little scared. Ah! Suddenly, a little witch screamed. It turned out that the muddy ground under her feet was too slippery. She accidentally tripped and almost fell. Ivan shook his head. He really couldn't bear to watch it. Light up the way ahead. Ivan took out his wand and gently waved at the lantern in Hagrid's hand. The next moment, the light of the lantern in Hagrid's hand kept swaying, and dots of light fell from it. On the originally dark mud road, golden footprints illuminated the road behind Hagrid. Wow, what is this? The footprints are glowing. Is it the magic of the big guy? But soon, with the explanation of Neville, Hermione, and others around Ivan, the little wizards knew the origin of this magic. For a while, all the little wizards looked at Ivan. Their eyes were full of longing, envy, and amazement. Of course, there was also jealousy and unwillingness. Oh, Hagrid also noticed this scene. He looked at the lantern that turned golden like a little sun and looked at Ivan gratefully. Did you do it? What kind of magic is this? In fact, Hagrid also noticed the problem with this road. However, only young wizards would walk here, and it was once a year, so there was really no need to repair it. In addition, letting young wizards walk in the dark itself was a reason to imitate the original four giants, hoping that they could experience the founder's feeling when he discovered Hogwarts. This magic is called lighting the way forward, sir. Ivan explained. It's a spell I created based on the fluorescent flashing and the appearance of the original form. Create? Hagrid was stunned for a moment. You mean you created a new spell? Not only Hagrid, but other young wizards who heard that Ivan could create spells all showed incredible expressions without exception. Incredible. Is he really a little wizard? The little wizards were talking about it, but Ivan didn't care. Instead, Hermione beside him was proud. Miss Beaver wanted to tell them loudly how good her Ivan was. When it comes to Ivan's bragging, Hermione Granger will never lose to anyone. I heard that walking the path of the Big Four again is a ritual that contains mysterious and powerful protective magic. Ivan took Hermione to Hagrid. There were not many first-year students, so even if Ivan's voice was not loud, everyone could hear it clearly. Yes, you. Ivan Ambrosius, Ivan said, and waved his wand again, making the originally bright golden footprints dim, but it still allowed the little wizards to see the road under their feet clearly so that they would not fall. Hagrid was amazed by this scene. I have never seen a little wizard who has such a spell-casting ability before entering school. Hagrid exclaimed, but the opening dinner was about to begin, and he could not delay any longer. He could only thank Ivan and then greet the little wizards. Come on, follow my footsteps, and be careful of your steps. The little episode in the forest did not last long. They only knew that this year there was an extraordinary little wizard, a magic genius. Turn this corner, and you will see Hogwarts for the first time. Hagrid shouted back. Then, a loud exclamation of "Oh" broke out from the crowd. Ivan and Hermione held hands, and they looked up and saw a black lake suddenly opened at the end of the narrow path. On the high hillside on the other side of the lake stood a towering castle with towers and windows flashing under the starry sky. This dreamlike scene left a deep impression on the freshmen. So beautiful. Hermione excitedly shook Ivan's hand. Is this Hogwarts? I can't believe we will learn magic here in the future. No more than 4 people on each boat. Hagrid pointed to a group of small boats moored on the shore and said loudly. Ivan took Hermione and Neville on the boat, as well as a girl with 2 golden braids. When he heard her name was Hannah Abbott, even Ivan couldn't help but stand in awe. As the saying goes, the protagonist changes with time, but Hannah Abbott remains unchanged. I remember that Hannah in the original book seemed to become Neville's wife later. With this in mind, Ivan looked at Hannah and Neville standing shoulder to shoulder. Both of them were shy and introverted, which was indeed suitable. Are you all on board? Hagrid took a boat by himself, and he shouted to everyone, well, let's go. A group of small boats immediately crossed the mirror-like lake and sailed forward. Everyone was silent, staring at the huge castle that reached into the sky. As they approached the cliff where the castle was located, the castle seemed to tower over their heads. Keep your heads down. Hagrid shouted, as the first batch of boats approached the cliff. Everyone lowered their heads, and the boats carried them through the ivy curtain covering the front of the cliff to the hidden open entrance. They followed a dark tunnel that seemed to come to the bottom of the castle, and finally arrived at a place like an underground dock, and then climbed up a ground of gravel and pebbles. "Hey, look, is this your toad?" The students got off the boats one after another, and Hagrid stopped Neville while checking the empty boats. Ivan turned around. He didn't know how Hagrid judged that the toad was Neville. However, after Ivan turned on his psychic vision, he saw a very faint thread connecting Neville to the toad. Is it because of this? Hagrid didn't have psychic vision, but he might have some special talents that could sense animals. Thank God. Neville stretched out his arms and shouted ecstatically. He never thought that his own leaf would meet him here again. Wizard, thank God, are you sure? Ivan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He patted Neville's shoulder. Hermione was also happy that the boy could find his pet. To be honest, the two had almost given up on Leaf. They all felt that the toad had abandoned its silly little master. Follow me, don't fall behind. After that, they climbed up a tunnel in the rock with the help of the light of Hagrid's lantern and the traces left by lighting the way ahead, and finally reached a flat and wet meadow under the shadow of the castle. Everyone climbed up a stone staircase and gathered in front of a huge oak door. Hagrid raised his huge fist and knocked on the castle door 3 times. Here, Ivan lifted the spell and received gratitude from many little wizards, especially those little witches. If it weren't for Ivan's protection along the way, they would probably have their wizard robes covered in mud. Chapter 27. Ghosts that do not belong to the material world. The door opened, and a tall black-haired witch in an emerald green robe stood in front of the door. It was Professor McGonagall. McGonagall glanced at the freshmen. Her eyes stayed on Ivan and Hermione for a while, and finally looked at Harry Potter. The Hogwarts cat lady looked serious, but she actually felt quite sympathetic towards Harry, who had a tragic life. Seeing that he finally came to Hogwarts, she felt relieved. First-year student Professor McGonagall. Thank you, Hagrid. McGonagall, leave it to me to pick you up here. After that, McGonagall opened the door wide. The entrance hall leading to the Great Hall was extremely tall, with blazing torches around the stone walls, and the ceiling was so high that the top was almost invisible. In front was a luxurious marble staircase leading directly to the upper floors. The young wizards followed Professor McGonagall along the stone floor. Ivan heard the buzzing of hundreds of people coming from the door on the right. Students from other classes in the school must have arrived. But Professor McGonagall took the first-year students to a small empty room at the other end of the hall. Everyone rushed in, rubbing shoulders with each other, and nervously stared at everything around them. "Welcome to Hogwarts," said Professor McGonagall. "The opening banquet is about to begin, but before you take your seats in the hall, you must first confirm which college you will enter. Sorting is a very important ceremony, because during your time at school, the college is like your home in Hogwarts. You will attend classes with other students in the college, live in the college dormitory together, and spend your spare time in the college common room together," Professor McGonagall said, glancing at Ivan obscurely, and the smart boy really noticed the sight of this elderly cat girl and nodded slightly. For an excellent little wizard like Ivan, no dean of the college would dislike it. As Ivan's guiding teacher, McGonagall is close to the water and gets the moon first. If it was snatched away by another house, she would definitely throw the sorting hat into the furnace and turn this stupid thing into ashes. The names of the 4 colleges are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Of course, on the surface, Professor McGonagall still had to show an equal attitude. Each college has its own glorious history and has cultivated outstanding wizards. During your study at Hogwarts, your outstanding performance will earn extra points for your college, and any violation will cause your college to lose points. At the end of the year, the college with the highest score will receive the College Cup, which is a great honor. Professor McGonagall played the role of the dean very well, and his serious tone made the little wizards quiet. I hope that no matter which college you are assigned to, you can bring honor to the college. Okay, in a few minutes, the sorting ceremony will be held in front of all the teachers and students in the school. McGonagall, I suggest that you tidy yourself up while waiting and then be more energetic. Her eyes wandered over Neville's cloak and the dirt on Ronald's nose. For a moment, all the little wizards began to tidy up their clothes. Even Hermione asked Ivan in a low voice, and Harry was so nervous that he tried to smooth his hair. "I'll pick you up when it's ready," Professor McGonagall said. "Please keep quiet while you wait." "How can they accurately sort us into which house?" Harry asked Ronald, who also had only a vague idea. "I think we have to pass a test. Fred said it would hurt us a lot, but I think he was joking." "Take a test? In front of the whole school?" Ronald's words caused a small commotion, because most of the new wizards didn't know any magic. Hermione was better. She wasn't afraid of the test, but she was worried that she would get a bad score. For a moment, everyone seemed so panicked. Ivan could hear Hermione mumbling to herself beside him, reciting the spells she had learned quickly, and she was not sure which one to use. Ah! Suddenly, the little wizard screamed. Suddenly, more than 20 ghosts jumped out from the wall behind them. These pearly white, translucent ghosts slid across the room and whispered to each other. Interesting. Ivan ignored the conversation of these ghosts. He focused more on their existence. He turned on his psychic vision and looked carefully at the ghost closest to him. In Ivan's eyes, the ghost was wrapped in a layer of magic field, as if it was bound by some kind of power. So, Ivan controlled his psychic vision ability and began to magnify the body of this ghost by tens of millions of times and observe it from a microscopic perspective. What's going on? However, the strange thing is that unlike those strange magical animals in the microscopic world, ghosts have no entity. As Ivan magnified, the composition of the ghost did not appear in front of him. How to say it? Just like you magnify a grain of sand, theoretically, you will always see smaller elements that make up the sand. But ghosts are different. When Ivan turned on his psychic vision, the ghost's body disappeared inexplicably in front of his eyes after it became tiny to a certain extent. Yes, it disappeared. This feeling is like the ghost is made up of only the mist wrapped in magic, and there is no smaller component. In other words, the ghosts in the wizarding world do not conform to the physical laws of atoms and molecules. Is this the soul? Ivan felt that he had discovered something very interesting. Souls do not belong to the material world, so the laws of the material world cannot bind them. Move forward now. Professor McGonagall came back. The sorting ceremony is about to begin. The next moment, the ghost floated and disappeared through the opposite wall. Chapter 28 branch now, line up in a single file. Professor McGonagall said to the first-year students, "Follow me." The young wizards in front began to move forward. Ivan stood behind Hermione, and in front of her were Ronald and Harry. The young wizards walked out of the room, through the entrance hall, and through a double door into the magnificent hall. In the hall, students from other years of the college were already sitting around 4 long tables, and thousands of candles floating in the air above the tables illuminated the hall. The 4 tables were placed with glittering golden plates and high-footed wine glasses. And there was another long table on the platform at the top of the hall, which was the seat for teachers. Professor McGonagall took the first-year students there and asked them to line up facing all the senior students. The candlelight flickered, and the hundreds of faces watching them were like pale lanterns, and the ghosts among the students also shone dimly with silver light. Everyone looked up and saw stars twinkling on the velvety black ceiling. This place has been enchanted, and it looks like the sky outside. I read about this in Hogwarts, a history. Hermione leaned back slightly and whispered to Ivan what she knew. Professor McGonagall gently placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first-year student and then placed a pointed wizard hat on the stool. The hat was patched, worn, and extremely dirty. The hat twisted and split open a wide seam. Like a mouth, the hat began to sing. "You may think I'm not beautiful, but don't judge people by appearance. If you can find a more beautiful hat than mine, I can eat myself. Try it on, and I will tell you which house you should be assigned to. You may belong to Gryffindor, where there is courage buried in the heart. Their courage, spirit, and chivalry make Gryffindor outstanding. You may belong to Hufflepuff, where people are upright and loyal. Hufflepuff students are perseverant and honest and are not afraid of hard work. If you are smart, maybe you will enter the wise Ravenclaw. Those wise and knowledgeable people will always meet their peers there. Maybe you will enter Slytherin, where you will make sincere friends, but those cunning and sinister people will do whatever it takes to achieve their goals. After the hat finished singing, the whole audience applauded. While the hat bowed to the 4 tables one by one, and then stopped moving. So the sorting ceremony is just to put on a hat. Hermione said angrily. She expressed some regrets. She had prepared so much for the sorting ceremony. This aroused the dissatisfaction of Harry and Ronald, especially the latter, who was very dissatisfied with Hermione, a top student who didn't understand the suffering of the world. But how can it determine which school we belong to? Hermione asked curiously. Harry and Ronald looked at the erudite and steady Ivan, only to hear the latter say, "The hat has very powerful magic, and the 4 giants have given it their will, so that it can sort according to the preferences of the 4 people." You can imagine that the moment you put on the hat, the 4 college founders will discuss around you. For those whose blood is not pure enough, Slytherin expressed disdain. Next is Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, who value the courage and wisdom of the little wizard respectively. As for the rest, the tolerant and gentle Hufflepuff will open his arms to them. Of course, this does not mean that Hufflepuff is inferior to the other 3. Ivan thinks that ambition, wisdom, and courage are all positive things that can support wizards to move towards a higher path. For those children who want to progress, Hufflepuff will not interfere with their choices. But if you desire stability, are willing to work hard and face life steadily, Hufflepuff will give you a warm home. Where did you see these, Ivan? Hermione, I have never read these in books. The little witch will not doubt Ivan's words. In the past half-month of getting along, Hermione has already developed the concept of Ivan Professor Book Other. This should be considered a talent. Ivan smiled and said, "I can see the magic on the hat and hear the voices left by the 4 giants." Harry and Ronald widened their eyes, obviously not expecting Ivan to have such a skill. "It's not that great, just treat it as my nonsense." "Tis," Malfoy sneered disdainfully from the front of the team, and he looked back at the 4 people with jealousy. "I have never heard of such ability. You really like to show off, Ivan Ambrosius." The pretentious and slightly sour provocative tone really fits the saying the sky is clear, the rain has stopped, and Malfoy feels that he is good again. Harry and Ronald stared at Malfoy with dissatisfaction. The 2 of them have a good impression of Ivan, who is humble, knowledgeable, gentle, and steady, especially Harry. Ivan helped him teach the 3 Malfoys who spoke rudely, and Harry always remembered that he would not allow Malfoy to slander those who were good to him. It's really bizarre. Ivan didn't care about Malfoy's sarcasm. He shrugged and said with a smile, "Then treat it as a joke of mine. Don't worry about it." Unlike Malfoy, who was arrogant and like a peacock, the little wizards obviously admired Ivan more and were willing to believe what he said and his unique talent. "Whoever's name I call now, put on the hat, sit on the stool, and wait for the sorting." At this time, Professor McGonagall walked forward a few steps, holding a roll of parchment in her hand, and she shouted, "Hannah Abbott. Hannah is always strong." Even though she was behind her, Hannah was still the first to be sorted. The little witch walked out of the team nervously and then stumbled out of the queue and put on the hat under the gaze of everyone. "Hufflepuff," Ivan muttered softly, and only Hermione heard it. "Hufflepuff." Sure enough, with a shout from the hat, the people at the table on the right applauded and cheered for Hannah, welcoming her to sit at their table. "Did you see it again?" Hermione said something that Ronald and Harry couldn't understand, and Ivan smiled helplessly. "You know, Hermione, sometimes I'm also troubled." "What about me? Did you see which house I would be sorted into?" "If you tell me, there will be no surprises, right?" Ivan didn't answer, but just blinked at Hermione, and the little witch rolled her eyes at him in anger. "What are you talking about?" Harry was puzzled, and Ronald was even more stupid, not knowing whether to watch the sorting ceremony or listen to Ivan and Hermione's whispers. "Susan Bones, Hufflepuff, Terry Boot, Ravenclaw, Justin Finch Fletchley, Hufflepuff." The sorting ceremony continued, and soon came to Hermione. The little witch gave Ivan a cute glare, then quickly ran to the stool and put the hat on her head. Chapter 29. The Sorting Hat. "Are you sure you are a little wizard?" "Oh, a smart little girl. Where should I sort you?" The sorting hat has a certain ability of legitimacy, and can see some of Hermione's memories, but more of it is the most essential character, heart, and will of the Little Witch. Sometimes, the Sorting Hat does not simply make the best choice. It also gives a person a chance to change. Just like Neville, who is timid and cowardly, was sorted into Gryffindor by the Sorting Hat because it felt that Neville did not lack talent, but confidence and courage. Similarly, Hermione is smart, but she is lacking in other aspects. For example, Hermione does not know how to deal with people, does not understand people's hearts, pays too much attention to rules and regulations, is superstitious about the so-called truth, and lacks the courage to break the rules. And these things are not lacking in Gryffindor. It's really tangled. For a whole minute, the Sorting Hat could not make a choice. If it's Ravenclaw, she will definitely like you very much. Ravenclaw, Hermione knows all 4 colleges, and she doesn't want to go to Hufflepuff. Although the Little Witch didn't say it, she still felt subconsciously that Hufflepuff was a place where only idiots and good-for-nothings would go. As for Slytherin, Hermione somewhat rejected this evil and terrible college. She felt inferior in front of those nobles in the wizarding world. I know where you should go. The big mouth of the Sorting Hat slightly tilted up and then shouted loudly, Gryffindor! Pa pa pa! Professor McGonagall in the teacher's seat was overjoyed when he saw Hermione was sorted into Gryffindor. Hermione walked off the stage with a smile on her face. Although she didn't know why the Sorting Hat sorted her into Gryffindor, Hermione could accept it whether it was Gryffindor or Ravenclaw. And now, the Little Witch only hoped that Ivan could go to the same college with her. She didn't want to be separated from Ivan. Next was Ronald, who was sorted into Gryffindor just like in the original book. Then came Malfoy, Moon, Knott, Parkinson, and the Patil twins. Harry Potter. Harry was called up, and Ivan noticed that the professors in the teacher's seat and the young wizards in the audience all focused their attention on Harry. At this time, Ivan looked at the white-haired and white-bearded old man sitting in the center. The strongest wizard still alive in the entire Harry Potter world, Albus Dumbledore. Just sitting there, Ivan could see the powerful magic emanating from the old man. Magic is not energy, but a supernatural manifestation. The invisible aura possessed by Dumbledore seems ordinary, but in fact, it is integrated. Ivan has never seen that feeling of returning to nature in other wizards. Dumbledore seemed to notice Ivan's gaze and also looked at him. The old and the young just stared at each other. Dumbledore recognized Ivan. Just as Ivan could sense Dumbledore's power, the old man could see the boy's extraordinary qualities. A natural-born wizard. Dumbledore smiled kindly. He was amazed at Ivan's talent, but the old man didn't want to do anything. Some people might think that Dumbledore was afraid of the next Voldemort, so he was wary of every ambitious and talented little wizard. However, Ivan had a different view of this idea at the moment. Psychic vision can not only see the microscopic level of the magical world, but also perceive others' kindness and malice towards oneself like a sixth sense. Dumbledore's kindness was very pure, without any conspiracy, and he was completely looking at an amazing junior. However, gradually, Dumbledore's eyes became weird. He first showed doubts, as if he was thinking, and as if he was recalling. Finally, as if he had confirmed something, the old man's eyes became more solemn and worried. Has it been noticed? Ivan secretly marveled at Dumbledore's sharpness. The old man saw the power lurking in his body, silently. Gryffindor. Just then, the old and young were awakened by the sound of the Sorting Hat. Dumbledore gave Ivan an apologetic look, then picked up the wine glass and gestured to Harry, congratulating him on entering Gryffindor. We have Potter! We have Potter! The Weasley twins were celebrating loudly there, and Professor McGonagall was also smiling. She felt that today was definitely her lucky day. First Hermione, then Harry. Now only Ivan is missing, and Professor McGonagall can gather her 3 trump cards to dominate Hogwarts. Ivan Ambrosius. As McGonagall read out Ivan's name, Ivan, Hermione, Ronald, and the new wizards all looked at him. The senior students didn't know Ivan, and among the teachers, only Dumbledore and McGonagall knew that Ivan was special. Therefore, Ivan didn't receive much attention. He walked forward calmly and sat on the stool. Professor McGonagall nervously put the hat on Ivan's head. It's funny to say that she, who presided over the sorting ceremony, would feel uneasy about the sorting of a student one day. Except Slytherin. Professor McGonagall prayed secretly. She really didn't want Ivan to be sorted into Slytherin. This is not to say that McGonagall discriminates against Slytherin, but the current atmosphere of the Snake House is really bad. The older cat girl is worried that Ivan will be led astray by the pure blood concept. However, Professor McGonagall obviously thought too much. Ivan is not a believer in pure blood. Compared to that kind of thing, Ivan agrees more with that sentence. For the greater good. Merlin's beard, what's wrong with you? The Sorting Hat exclaimed in a low voice. It has existed for thousands of years, but has never encountered such a terrible little wizard. Are you sure you're not an old guy over 100 years old who took the polyjuice potion? This magic, the Sorting Hat can feel the terrifying power in Ivan's body like a stormy wave just by touching it. What's even more embarrassing is that there's another will in Ivan's body, which hinders the Sorting Hat from exploring Ivan. It can't see his mind clearly and can only vaguely feel some fragments. When the Sorting Hat tried to perceive more deeply, the will turned into a black storm, which scared the Sorting Hat so much that it almost jumped off Ivan's head. I'm sorry, Mr. Hat. Ivan smiled and said, I am indeed a little wizard. Okay. The Sorting Hat calmed down and found that it had encountered an unprecedented trouble. What a great little guy. You will definitely become a great wizard in the future. Chapter 30 Lion King. So, Ivan didn't mind chatting with this magical hat. Looking at so many magic items, only the Sorting Hat has creativity, which is a power that ordinary alchemical creations do not have. This shows how powerful magic the four giants infused when creating this magic hat. How about Slytherin? The Sorting Hat did not make a choice immediately, but tentatively said, I can feel that your blood is very pure. Even the four who created me are not as good as you. If Slytherin is still alive, seeing a little wizard like Ivan, I'm afraid he will fight directly with Gryffindor. Ambrosius's eternal blood is too excellent. Pure bloodline. This is already the ceiling of the magic world. Sorry. Although Ivan treated the four colleges equally, some things were not simply said. I don't like students from the Serpentine College. How about you reconsider, Mr. Hat? How about Ravenclaw? You are very smart, have enough wisdom, and have extraordinary talent. The Sorting Hat said, the most suitable colleges for you are Slytherin and Ravenclaw. Ravenclaw represents wisdom. Ivan loves magic so much that he can get better improvement in that learning atmosphere. Ravenclaw, Ivan still has a good impression of the Eagle College. If there is only one person, Ivan thinks that entering the Eagle College would be a good choice. It seems that this result still cannot satisfy you. Feeling Ivan's hesitation, the Sorting Hat immediately knew what he meant. In fact, the moment Hermione went to Gryffindor, Ivan actually had the answer in his heart. He didn't want to go to Slytherin because it was full of smoke and miasma, and a group of pure blood supporters were all Malfoy and the like. Some people may say that it is more beneficial for Ivan to win over pure blood nobles. However, Ivan said, a group of insects, what qualifications do you have for me to win over? In the wizarding world, magic is power. For Slytherin, you don't need to play any conspiracy and exchange of interest with them. As long as you are strong enough, there are many people who will come to you. Why should Ivan contact and play the emotional card when a group of people who don't need to invest emotions and can be made to bow down by waving a magic wand? Of course, this is not to say that there are no truly excellent students in the Snake Academy. Ivan just thinks that there is no need to spend time making friends with the little wizards in the Snake Academy. The cost-effectiveness is too low. It seems that you have made a decision. Sorting Hat. Then Gryffindor. As the Sorting Hat announced the result, Ivan stood up, took off the hat elegantly, and handed it to Professor McGonagall, who was excited and in tears. Dean Cat now only wants to say one thing. Slytherin, crawl away from me. Welcome to Gryffindor, little Ivan. Professor McGonagall congratulated softly. Ivan smiled back, and then strode towards the Gryffindor table. At this moment, Gryffindor welcomed their Lion King. Neville next to Hermione was shocked this time, and quickly gave up his seat to Ivan. I was so scared just now. I thought you were going to be sorted into another house. As soon as Ivan sat down, the little witch began to express her worries. Fortunately, the two were sorted into the same house. Neville, Harry, and Ronald also welcomed Ivan's arrival. Soon, the sorting ceremony was over. Albus Dumbledore stood up. He looked at the students with a smile on his face and stretched out his arms to them. It seemed that nothing made him happier than seeing the students gathered together. Welcome, Dumbledore. Welcome everyone to Hogwarts to start a new school year. Before the banquet begins, I want to say a few words, that is, idiot, crybaby, scum, twist. Thank you, everyone. He sat down again, and applause and cheers rang out from the four long tables. As Dumbledore finished speaking, all kinds of delicacies appeared on the long table, including roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, steaks, boiled potatoes, baked potatoes, fried potato chips, Yorkshire puddings, pea sprouts, carrots, gravy, ketchup. After traveling through time for so long, Ivan has long been accustomed to the diet of Ing. It must be admitted that this country is indeed a food desert. Fortunately, the food at Hogwarts is extremely delicious. Ivan and Hermione and other little wizards were already hungry. Seeing so many delicacies at this time, how could they resist, and immediately started to eat with relish. After everyone had filled their stomachs, the remaining food disappeared from the plates. The plates became clean again. After a while, the puddings came. There were all kinds of ice cream, apple pie, syrup fruit pie, chocolate sponge cake, fried jam donut, wine jam pudding, strawberry, jelly, rice pudding. Eating desserts, the little wizards began to talk about their families. Harry was the focus of the topic. Everyone wanted to know about his life in the Muggle world, but unfortunately Harry didn't want to talk about his miserable childhood. Soon, everyone turned their attention to Ivan. Hermione was asking Percy, a senior, for help. She could study spells on her own, but she only knew a little about transfiguration. Not only her, but even Ivan didn't try to master the skills of transfiguration before school started. Ivan, how did you learn so many magics? Harry looked at Ivan with admiration. He wanted to learn from Ivan so that he could master a few magics. He didn't ask to be as good as Ivan. As long as he had 20% or 30% of Ivan's ability, Harry would be satisfied. Ivan didn't know what to say. He didn't want to discourage Harry, so he casually explained to Harry a few tricks of wand casting. Halfway through, Harry suddenly covered his forehead. He looked at the teacher's seat, and Ivan found that Snape was focusing on this. But unlike Harry, Ivan cast his eyes on Professor Quirrell next to Snape. A ball of gray mist. Ivan saw the gray mist behind Quirrell's head, although it was very light, but it did exist. Is that Voldemort's current state? He didn't know whether Dumbledore had discovered it, but in accordance with the principle of not worrying about things that don't concern him, Ivan didn't want to get involved in Dumbledore's savior training plan. Without thinking anymore, Ivan tasted the delicious dessert by himself. As the pudding disappeared, the dinner officially ended. Dumbledore stood up, and the hall returned to silence. Chapter 31, Hidden Achievements. Oh, now that everyone has eaten and drunk enough, I want to say a few more words to everyone. Dumbledore's old voice echoed in the hall. At the beginning of the semester, I want to give you a few points of attention. Note to freshmen that no student is allowed to enter the forest area on the school grounds. Some of our old classmates should also remember this. When he said this, Dumbledore's shining eyes swept towards the Weasley twins. In addition, the administrator, Mr. Filch, also asked me to remind everyone not to perform magic in the corridor during class breaks. The review of Quidditch players will be held in the second week of this semester. Students who are interested in participating in the college representative team should contact Ms. Hooch. Finally, I must tell everyone, Dumbledore's eyes became serious. Anyone who does not want to encounter an accident or a painful death, please do not enter the corridor on the right side of the fourth floor. Hearing this, the newly enrolled wizards were very puzzled. Isn't Hogwarts the safest place in England? Now, before everyone goes to bed, let's sing the school song together. When Ivan heard the school song, he found that the smiles of the professors in the teacher's seat suddenly stiffened a little. Dumbledore flicked his wand lightly, and a long golden ribbon flew out of the wand, twisting and winding like a snake high above the dining table to form lines of text. Everyone chooses a tune they like. Dumbledore said, "Ready, sing." Then all the teachers and students sang loudly, "Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hogwarts. Please teach us knowledge." Whether we are bald old men or children with broken knees, our mind can accept some interesting things, because now our brains are empty, full of air, dead flies, and trivialities. Teach us some valuable knowledge. Give us back what we have forgotten. You just do your best, and leave the rest to us. We will study hard until we turn into dust. Everyone finished singing the school song in a scattered manner. Only the Weasley twins continued to sing along with the slow melody of Funeral March. Dumbledore used his wand to conduct the last few bars for the two of them, and when they finished singing, his applause was the loudest. "Music," he said, wiping his eyes, "is more charming than anything we do here. It's time to go to bed. Everyone go back to the dormitory." After Dumbledore finished speaking, he said something to McGonagall beside him. The latter showed a puzzled look, but still agreed. Ding dong. Complete the hidden achievement sorting dinner. Sorting dinner. Introduction. Congratulations to the host for completing the sorting ceremony that only happens once in a lifetime. The magical world is officially open to you. Reward. 1 potential point. Mysterious Wardrobe X1 hidden achievement. The sudden system prompt sound surprised Ivan. It was the first time he knew about his system. It turned out that there were hidden achievements, and there are hidden achievements for the sorting dinner. Will there be others? For example, the first Christmas, the first year graduation, etc. Ivan felt that he had another task in Hogwarts, which was to explore the castle and find more hidden achievements. Another potential point was obtained. The role of potential points is self-evident. 5 points of magic attribute makes him a natural great wizard. As long as he grows step by step, he can reach or even surpass Dumbledore's level without external force. However, Ivan did not add points immediately. He still needs to think carefully. In addition, Ivan is very curious about the new reward of the system, Mysterious Wardrobe. I don't know what this wardrobe is for. Mysterious Wardrobe. Introduction. A wardrobe connected to an unknown magic secret realm. Open it, and you can go to a mysterious magic kingdom. Status. To be collected. Ask if you want to collect it. Ivan. Hermione and Ivan were following Percy to the Gryffindor dormitory. She asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" "Oh, nothing, I tripped." Ivan answered casually and then focused on the description of the mysterious wardrobe. Connecting to an unknown magical secret realm. So, this is actually a door to a certain space? Ivan found that once the mysterious wardrobe is collected, it cannot be taken back, but exists in this world in the form of a physical entity. Ivan. Before Ivan could think more, Professor McGonagall's voice came from the back of the team. "Percy, I have something to ask Ivan." "Professor McGonagall, take the students back to the dormitory first." "Okay, Professor." Percy left with the little wizards. Ivan gave Hermione a reassuring look and came to McGonagall. "Professor, is there anything? Come with me." Professor McGonagall motioned Ivan to follow. The two walked in the castle with orange candles burning, all the way up to the door of the headmaster's office on the 8th floor. Cockroach pile. Professor McGonagall recited the password and took Ivan up the spiral staircase. During the whole process, Ivan did not speak, just silently followed McGonagall. Albus. The two walked into the headmaster's office, and Professor McGonagall said to Dumbledore, "I brought the child." "Ah, thank you, Minerva." Dumbledore smiled kindly and motioned Professor McGonagall to wait outside the door for a while, and he wanted to talk to Ivan alone. "Please hurry up, Albus." "Professor McGonagall, this kid must be exhausted after a day's journey." I know. Dumbledore said quickly that it would only take a little time. "Okay, then." McGonagall walked out of the headmaster's office and closed the door. In this way, only Ivan and Dumbledore were left in the headmaster's office. The paintings of past headmasters on the wall were curiously looking at the little wizard who was summoned by the headmaster as soon as he entered school. "Professor Dumbledore." Ivan politely asked the old man why he called him here, and Dumbledore smiled and nodded. The following conversation may not be suitable for outsiders to hear, right? As he said this, Dumbledore raised his hand and a magic silently enveloped the entire headmaster's office. The paintings that were expecting something to happen fell into silence, which ensured that the conversation between the two would not be leaked. You asked me to come here because of what's inside me? Ivan didn't mention Obscurus. He raised his hand, palm facing up, and a lot of black mist poured out, spreading in the headmaster's office in an instant. Amazing talent. Dumbledore's eyes were full of surprise, but more of worry and concern. Child, do you know what this is? I didn't know before, but I found something similar in the book I bought recently. Ivan said bluntly. It's Obscurus, right, Professor? Ah, yes, Obscurus. Dumbledore seemed to have recalled some bad memories and showed a painful look. Others may not know Dumbledore's attitude towards Obscurus, but Ivan is quite clear. Dumbledore's sister Ariana and nephew Aurelius, Credence, are Obscurus. It can be said that the Dumbledore family was destroyed by the Obscurus. Chapter 32, Becoming the Second White Devil. The Obscurus is a very powerful magical force. It usually appears in young wizards who suppress their magic. Dumbledore could see that Ivan was not abused, which was what surprised him the most. Your talent is rare in the world, Ivan. Ivan's magic is too strong, which may be the reason why he gave birth to the Obscurus. The magic riot of other young wizards is a huge disaster for Ivan. However, over the years, Dumbledore has never heard of Ivan making a fuss. This shows Ivan's control over the Obscurus and how difficult it is for him to maintain a kind heart while having such power. My nephew and sister are the same as you. After thinking for a long time, Dumbledore finally told Ivan the most painful past buried deep in his heart. He hoped to dispel Ivan's doubts and let the child trust himself more. So, I won't hurt you, absolutely not. Dumbledore looked at Ivan sincerely, as if he saw his sister and nephew in him. I believe you. Ivan nodded. He didn't really trust Dumbledore. The reason why he was not worried was that he had already seen some fragments of the future. It must be said that the identity of the Obscurial was simply a nemesis for Dumbledore, and he directly beat the strongest wizard in the world without any chance of fighting back. Thank you. Thank you for your trust, Ivan. Dumbledore took off his glasses tremblingly. He might have regarded Ivan's answer as forgiveness from his sister and nephew. Professor, the book says that it is difficult for Obscurials to live beyond the age of 10. Ivan asked, but I'm already 11 years old. Some young wizards with outstanding talents may break this law. But even so, the longest-lived Obscurial, Dumbledore's nephew, still died at the age of 25. You mean, Ivan asked, is there no way to stop it? Sorry, kid. Dumbledore sighed. I don't know what to do. Since the Statute of Secrecy came into being, Obscurus has almost disappeared in the entire wizarding world, because almost all young wizards will be admitted to magic schools everywhere. However, if you are willing, Ivan, you can come to me. Dumbledore said that Ivan can come to him at any time to ask questions about magic, and he will do his best to help. Yes, Dumbledore intends to train Ivan and let him grow better. As for Obscurus, Dumbledore asked himself that he could do nothing, but he believed in Ivan's potential. Thank you for your help, Professor. Ivan thanked him sincerely. With Dumbledore's teaching, his magic level will surely improve by leaps and bounds. And Dumbledore is right. Instead of pinning his hopes on others, Ivan should believe in himself. In short, Dumbledore hopes that Ivan will not give up and live strong and bravely. That's right, Dumbledore said. If possible, I hope you don't reveal this power easily. The Obscurial is a time bomb. Although it has long become a legend, its deterrent power is definitely higher than that of werewolves. If the parents of students knew Ivan's identity, it would definitely cause a big problem. However, Dumbledore was able to protect Lupin and hide his werewolf identity so that he could study at Hogwarts with peace of mind, and he could naturally guarantee Ivan. I understand, Professor. Ivan knew the issues involved. The Obscurial is no different from a slap in the face for the magic world of various countries. Because this proves the shortcomings of the Ministry of Magic in education and guidance of young wizards, it will be severely criticized by the International Confederation of Wizards. In addition, young wizards will regard Ivan as a monster, and parents of students will worry that their children will be hurt. After all, once the obscurial breaks out, the consequences will be disastrous. Therefore, Ivan could understand the pressure Dumbledore might face. I will try not to use this power. Just don't hurt the children. Dumbledore took off his glasses and told Ivan that this was not a limitation. If Ivan needed the power of the Obscurus, he would protect him even if his identity was exposed, just like Lupin at the beginning. Okay. Dumbledore smiled and said, "Rest early. By the way, Professor." Ivan was about to leave, but suddenly he thought of something. He turned around and said casually, "I saw something at the banquet." "What?" "The professor sitting in the teacher's seat." Ivan said, "The one with the cloth tied on his head." "Professor Quirrell, what's wrong with him?" "I saw a black mist on him." Ivan's clairvoyance can detect things that ordinary people can't detect. Dumbledore seemed to have discovered this, but he didn't expect Ivan to be so sharp. Ivan said this because of Dumbledore's hint just now. Parents will worry about the Silent Ones, but what about Voldemort? You know, letting Voldemort enter Hogwarts and serve as the professor of defense against the dark arts is not a trivial matter. "I know." Dumbledore thought for a moment. "I will deal with this matter." "Well, good night, Professor." Since Dumbledore didn't want to say it, Ivan would naturally not take the initiative to get involved. He was both defensive and trusting of Dumbledore. The precaution is that Dumbledore is too cunning, and one could become part of his plan if he is not careful. As for trust, there's a saying in Harry Potter that you can always trust Dumbledore. Think carefully, except for the unclear Ariana. Has Dumbledore ever hurt anyone in his life? Don't think too well of Dumbledore, but don't think too badly of him. There's one thing: Dumbledore did not deceive Ivan. That is, this old man will never hurt him. But what is the reason for not hurting? Ivan's first contact with Dumbledore made him have a deeper impression of the white devil of the wizarding world. For greater interests? He didn't believe that Dumbledore would not know that there was something wrong with Quirrell. Perhaps Dumbledore did not expect Quirrell to be possessed by Voldemort. But even if Quirrell just degenerated into a dark wizard, letting him enter Hogwarts is still a very irresponsible thing. There are also the protective measures of the Philosopher's Stone and those magical levels that are like playing house. Rather than saying this is protection, it is better to say that it is a bait to lure Voldemort and a test for Harry. However, no matter what, Dumbledore's behavior, whether it is luring Voldemort or hiding something as dangerous as the Philosopher's Stone on the 4th floor, is playing with the lives of young wizards. This is Dumbledore. Ivan couldn't guess Dumbledore's thoughts. But there is one thing he can be sure of. That is, between the teachers and students of Hogwarts and a certain plan, Dumbledore chose the latter. The entire Harry Potter 8 books are the price prepared for that moment. Everyone in it, all the crises, all of them. Harry is the savior. He is the center of the story. But what about others? Sirius, Lupin, the Longbottoms, and the Weasleys. These people chose to follow Dumbledore. How much risk did they take, and how much did they pay? For the greater good, some people can be sacrificed, even if that person is himself. Thinking of this, Ivan couldn't help but smile. If you come to this world, wouldn't it be a pity if you don't fight with the strongest wizard of the contemporary era? Is this dangerous? Ivan thought it was very interesting. You know, Voldemort killed so many people, and Dumbledore didn't take direct action back then. It can be seen from this that Dumbledore's attitude has always been contradictory. It seems that whether Voldemort can open up a new era is the key factor that influences Dumbledore's attitude compared to how many people died. If the Death Eaters hadn't acted more and more crazy later, and Dumbledore realized that Voldemort was not the future of the wizarding world, how could he have formed the Order of the Phoenix and led his followers to fight against him? Just like the Solo with Grindelwald. Until the last moment, he made up his mind to be the enemy of the person he loved. In other words, as long as Ivan does not touch Dumbledore's bottom line, he will never have to worry that Dumbledore will do anything that is not good for him. In short, let's set a small goal first. Ivan felt the faint restlessness in his body, establish my own lion group in Hogwarts, and then become the second generation of White Devil. Chapter 33, adding points. Ivan left the headmaster's office. McGonagall saw him coming out and asked him immediately. Ivan did not hide anything and told Professor McGonagall that Dumbledore allowed him to ask him about magic at will. This surprised the latter and made him happy for Ivan. In terms of magic attainments, if Dumbledore said he was second, no one would dare to say he was first. With the guidance of such a famous teacher, Ivan's growth path will surely be smoother. Professor McGonagall took Ivan to the Gryffindor common room. She read out today's password and asked the fat lady to open the door for the two. Now it has been nearly an hour since the dinner, and most of the young wizards have passed the initial excitement, and the fatigue of the journey has suddenly surged up. Many students almost fell asleep, and only Hermione in the lower grades was still waiting for Ivan's return in the public lounge. Ivan, Hermione got up from the soft sofa. Why did you come back just now? Professor McGonagall? The little witch saw McGonagall beside Ivan and greeted him quickly. Dumbledore wants to see little Ivan. I took him to the principal's office. Professor McGonagall did not stay for long. The older cat lady gave the two little ones a look, indicating that they should not chat too late and go to bed early, and then went to her dormitory. At Hogwarts, most professors have rest rooms in their offices. Only the deans of the 4 colleges will live in their respective colleges to deal with various emergencies. Ivan, don't worry. It's just that Principal Dumbledore discovered my talent and thought I was a promising talent, so he planned to give me some special guidance. Ivan did not intend to keep it a secret from Hermione about being an obscure. The little witch was his best friend. Just like Lupin told James, Sirius, and others about his werewolf identity, Ivan was willing to believe Hermione. Hermione would not alienate Ivan because of the existence of the Obscurus. On the contrary, with the little witch's empathy, she would probably be more active than Ivan in breaking the deadlock of the Obscurus. There are classes tomorrow. Ivan patted the little witch's head in fear. Good night, Hermione. Good night. The two separated in the common room. Before leaving, Hermione told Ivan's dormitory. Ivan was very curious about how many students there were in Hogwarts in his previous life. At the dinner, Ivan made a special estimate and found that all the students added up to less than 300 people, and there were about 70 to 80 people in each college. Just like Ivan's class, Gryffindor has a total of 11 freshmen this year, including 5 girls and 6 boys. Gryffindor's dormitory is a 5-person room. When Ivan walked into the dormitory, he saw 5 4-poster beds with crimson velvet curtains hanging inside. The students' boxes had already been delivered. Yumi, who was locked in a cage, meowed when she saw Ivan. Because of the number of people, Ivan had only one roommate, and that was Neville. Are we the only two? Ivan carried Yumi out and put her on the bed, then asked while changing into pajamas. Only the 2 of us. Neville was very happy to be Ivan's roommate. That's good, Ivan said with a smile. He looked at the time, and after asking Neville, he chose to turn off the lights and go to bed. It was midnight. In the dim dormitory, Ivan climbed out of bed after confirming that Neville was asleep. The reward for the sorting ceremony, the wardrobe. Ivan turned on the system and saw an option of props at the bottom of the attribute list. Ivan Ambrosius, age, 11 gender, male race, wizard bloodline, Ambrosius family talents, transfiguration magus, prophecy magus, silent, attributes, 1 normal, 2 excellent, 3 outstanding, 4 rare, 5 legendary, 6 apocalypse, 7 miracle, soul, 4 rare, magic, 5 legendary, physique, 1 ordinary, thinking, 3 excellent, mind, 2 excellent, will, 2 excellent, current potential point, 1 holding props, mysterious wardrobe x1 mysterious wardrobe. Introduction. A wardrobe connected to an unknown magical secret realm. Open it and you can go to a mysterious magical kingdom status. To be collected, ask if you want to collect it, get the wardrobe. As Ivan thought, an exquisite double-door wardrobe appeared in front of Ivan. The wardrobe is about 1 person tall and made of precious mahogany. There are 3 full-length mirrors on the cabinet door, reflecting the bedroom and Ivan under the moonlight. Go to a mysterious, magical kingdom. Ivan stroked the cabinet door. After summoning the mysterious wardrobe, the relevant information of this thing has already appeared in his mind. The mysterious wardrobe is a system prop. Its body is bound to Ivan. What is outside is just a projection of the cabinet. This also means that Ivan can take back the wardrobe. The only problem is that there is a time interval for this ability to summon the wardrobe. That is, after each summoning, you need to wait 24 hours before you can summon it again. Of course, there is no limit to taking back the wardrobe. Even if Ivan is standing outside the castle now, he can still cancel the projection of the wardrobe and make it disappear. By the way, I remember that the sorting ceremony gave me 1 potential point. Ivan reopened the system. He looked at his current attributes. After thinking it over, he decided to stick to the original principle of adding points. It's better to specialize in one thing than to be mediocre in everything. System, improve soul attributes. Attributes soul, 45 legendary. Magic, 5 constitution, 1 thinking, 3 mind, 2 will, 2 current potential points. 0, that's it. Ivan felt the changes in himself after adding points. Unfortunately, Ivan did not feel the benefits of soul improvement. Neither clear-headed nor flexible thinking made Ivan quite strange. When the soul is upgraded to level 4, the psychic vision that can see the microscopic magic world is opened. Ivan closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, he felt that the whole world had changed differently. First, the wardrobe in front of Ivan was emitting a strange light, which was a symbol of magic. Looking around, everything he saw had its own color and rules. What is this? Ivan couldn't figure out the ability he had gained after his soul reached level 5. Magic perspective? Meow. Yumi was startled by the sudden appearance of the wardrobe. It squatted at Ivan's feet, calling softly, and also woke up Ivan, who was meditating. Forget it. There will be plenty of time to explore the mysteries of the soul in the future. As for now, want to have an adventure? Yumi. Ivan took out his wand, glanced at Neville, who was still sleeping, and then cast a floating spell to put the wardrobe in the right place. The benefits of sleeping with Neville are reflected here. Neville is dull and introverted, completely different from those naughty kids who like to mess with other people's things. He is an absolutely good boy. Chapter 34, Magical Secret Realm. But before that, we have to prepare first. Soundly sleep. Ivan cast a new type of magic on Neville that he had developed from the spell of fainting. The magic of soundly sleep can improve the quality of sleep and even set a good time to wake up so that Neville will not miss breakfast the next day while having a good dream. Okay, this is foolproof. Ivan picked up Yumi and turned the mechanism on the handle of the wardrobe. With a crisp sound of click, the cabinet originally used to store clothes has become a door to the magical secret realm. The moment he stepped into the cabinet, the system prompt sounded in Ivan's mind. Get the side quest, Magical Secret Realm. Task summary. Through the cabinet, you came to a magical secret realm created by magic. Explore here and solve the mystery of the birth of the secret realm. Task reward. Unknown meow. Accompanied by Yumi's cry, Ivan opened his eyes. He recalled the side quest he had just received and looked at the world outside the cabinet. This was an extremely dense forest, with various shrubs and ancient trees blocking Ivan's sight. Ivan subconsciously opened the magic eye he had just obtained, the eye that can see magic. Suddenly, Ivan felt that the entire forest had turned into a sea of colors. The sky above his head, the soil under his feet, and every blade of grass and tree here carried strong magic fluctuations. Because it was too dazzling, Ivan had to close the magic eye and then observe this secret realm from a normal person's perspective. This side quest requires me to solve the mystery of the birth of the secret realm. Ivan pushed aside the bushes in front of him, stepped on the soil under his feet, and touched the surrounding trees. Real touch. There is no trace of transformation on it. This is real. Yumi fell to the ground and looked around curiously. Ivan brought the kitten here. One is to travel together, and the other is to throw it out to block the knife when encountering danger. Yumi? Of course, this was a joke. Ivan had already done divination before entering the closet, and he and Yumi appeared in class safe and sound a few days later. This is just like telling your own fortune before doing anything. Ivan will never rush into the unknown world without any preparation. Swish! Just thinking about it, the sudden sound made Ivan's face tense. He almost reflexively held the wand on his sleeve in his hand and then pointed it at the figure that jumped out of the bushes. What appeared in front of Ivan was a strange-looking blue bird with a thick, short, curved beak, which looked like a turkey on the table that came back to life. Dodo. Ivan recognized this bird. It was an extinct bird that he had learned about in the nature class in his previous life. At the same time, the dodo was also startled by Ivan and Yumi. The next moment, there was a crisp sound, and the dodo disappeared into the white light. What? Ivan was a little confused, but he soon reacted. That was not a dodo at all, but a magical creature called the ball bird. According to the book Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the ball bird is a bird native to Mauritius and is also called the dodo by Muggles. In addition, because the Muggles did not know the teleportation ability of the ball bird, they thought they had made the bird extinct. Where is this place? Ivan was not scared by the sudden appearance of the ball bird. He quickly picked up Yumi and ran quickly following the breath of the ball bird. Before leaving, Ivan looked back and found that there was an ancient door at the connection between the cabinet and the secret realm, which was the exit from the secret realm. Swish! Ivan gave the door a marking spell, and then he left with confidence. Voila, voila. The bushes were constantly pushed away by Ivan, and he held the wand tightly, ready to deal with possible dangers at any time. In addition, Ivan never forgot that he was still a silent person. The terrifying silence itself is a symbol of magic power reaching 5. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a top-level black magic. With such power, Ivan is not worried about encountering any danger. What's more, even if he really can't beat it, Ivan can turn in a black mist and escape. Ga. Along the way, ball birds jumped out of the bushes one after another, making Ivan wonder if he had entered the territory of ball birds. Soon, the vision in front of him suddenly became clear. Ivan stopped and looked at the golden beach and the lake in front of him. He felt that the world was extremely clear, and even his soul seemed to be purified. He lowered his head and saw the ball birds he had just met, as well as many rare and exotic animals that Ivan could not recognize at all. They were gathering here, either absorbing water or playing in the water, forming a beautiful picture of ancient ecology. This secret place is much larger than I imagined. Ivan looked into the distance and found that the mountains were continuous and there was no end. He also noticed the birds and winged creatures flying in the sky, which showed the reality of the sky in the secret realm. It is hard to imagine what kind of magic can create such a world. Is this really the magic of Harry Potter's world? What can it do? In Ivan's opinion, the upper limit of wizards is at most the level of Dumbledore and Grindelwald. If we push forward, Merlin is the limit. But Merlin, can you cast such magic? Directly open up a space for so many magical animals to survive here, and even form a stable food chain and ecosystem. This is much more powerful than Newt's suitcase. No, you can't think like that. Ivan found himself in a misunderstanding. That is, this world, from the moment he crossed over, has been a real world. Since it is a real world, the history of wizards cannot be just that little. Think about it carefully. Who is the oldest wizard mentioned in the history of magic? Or where did he come from? According to the records in the history of magic that Ivan has read, European magic originated in ancient Egypt. If we calculate it this way, the history of wizards is at least more than 3,000 years, or even longer. According to Harry Potter's worldview, the prototype of Muggle mythology is the history of wizards. For example, the gods of ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, as well as the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors of the East, are all wizards in this world. Of course, different languages and cultures may have different names for wizards, but in essence, the power these people possess is still the magic that Ivan knows now, which can move the rules of the world. Chapter 35, Giant Thunderbird. Suddenly, Ivan's sight fell on the lake in the distance. Ivan felt a trance in front of his eyes, and then scenes reflected by the lake light came into his eyes. At the entrance of the woods on the edge of the golden beach, a golden giant beast fell from the sky with thunder, and its target was the little wizard holding the cat. Then the scene changed. The wind was howling in the sky, and the magical animals by the lake fled in all directions. On the ruins of the woods, there was only a scarred giant beast roaring angrily. Thunderbird, The appearance of the golden giant beast was very similar to the Thunderbird in the movie, but it was bigger than the one in Fantastic Beasts 1. Oops! Ivan trembled all over. He woke up from the Thunderbird's special prophetic state, and then without any hesitation, he took Yumi and ran towards the direction of the cabinet. Boom! The next moment, thunder roared, and the originally clear sky was covered by dark clouds. Just as the prophecy had said, Ivan heard the cry of a Thunderbird in the thunder. No, the speed difference is too big. If this goes on, I will definitely be caught up before I leave the secret realm. Ivan frowned slightly. He could feel that the Thunderbird was getting closer and closer to him. Bang! So, Ivan stopped abruptly and clenched the magic wand in his hand. There were faint red lines like flames spreading on it, and the shadow of the sleeping phoenix flew out, as if it had sensed the enemy and wanted to fight side by side with its master. It seems that we have to fight. Ivan was not afraid of fighting. Although he did not master a few spells, the battle of wizards was not that troublesome for him. So, Ivan turned around and aimed the magic wand in his hand at the figure falling from the sky. Swish! Ivan did not chant a spell. He gathered his magic power and fired a red-gold magic bullet from the end of the wand, and the target trajectory was aimed at the attacking beast. Chi! The Thunderbird flying in the sky looked extraordinary under the lightning, but even such a powerful magical creature still felt the threat of death after seeing the magic bullet flying towards it. It stopped suddenly in the air and successfully avoided the magic bullet. Bang! There was a loud noise coming from afar, and the terrifying energy swept through. It turned out that the magic bullet fell on the cliff in the distance, directly blowing up half of the mountain. This destructive power that shook the world was so great that even the giant Thunderbird that dominated the secret realm was stunned. Meow! The ragdoll cat widened his eyes, as if he was stunned by his master's amazing performance. Ivan did not let Yumi escape on his own. He now held the magic wand in his hand, and the Phoenix Shadow cooperated with him to control the magic power in his body. He no longer had to worry about the problem of losing control of the magic power. Galala, seeing the giant beast stunned, Ivan would not stop his attack. Black mist poured out of Ivan's body, and the earth, soil, and surrounding vegetation around him turned into black ashes as if they were burned out. In an instant, a tornado with a radius of tens of meters formed around Ivan. Roar! Ivan waved his magic wand, and the black storm turned into evil dragons, roaring towards the Thunderbird in the sky, as if to strangle it directly. For a moment, the forest at the entrance was swept by Ivan's magic power, and swept in all directions with a devastating force. However, this amazing offensive was blocked by the thunder released by the Thunderbird. Momo Rant's power is indeed very strong, but the magic resistance of this Thunderbird is also not weak. After its own storm and thunder are weakened, it is enough to resist the erosion of the black fog. Get out! Seeing the two sides in a stalemate, Ivan roared. The black fog and thunder continued to collide, and in the dim world, a red and golden light cut through the sky. The phoenix flew into the sky, and the boundless black fog merged with its wings, and finally condensed into a black bird that was dozens of meters high and burning with black flames. Seeing the black flame phoenix rushing towards it, a chill emerged from the Thunderbird's heart, making it want to escape. Gee, but this giant Thunderbird has dominated this forest lake for many years, and its pride will never allow it to escape without a fight. No longer hesitating, the Thunderbird let out bursts of hisses and rushed straight towards the black flame phoenix. Bang! The black flames and golden thunder collided in the air, and the dazzling white light forced Ivan and Yumi to close their eyes. Ivan could feel the terrifying pressure from the huge Thunderbird. He was not panicked, but extremely excited. So, Ivan pressed the magic wand in his hand down hard, with the tip of the wand pointing directly below. Gradually, with the support of Ivan's endless magic power, the black flame phoenix finally overwhelmed the golden Thunderbird and pressed it to the vast lake's surface amid the latter's screams. Boom! The next moment, a shocking sound erupted from the lake's surface, raising endless waves. Huh. Ivan's mind was focused on the gallop, and now that he had temporarily repelled the Thunderbird, he breathed a sigh of relief. The magic power of this Thunderbird is so strong. Let's go. Ivan no longer paid attention to the huge changes in the secret realm, picked up Yumi, and ran to the exit. Through magic, Ivan knew that the guy was not dead. But Ivan was sure that the other party would not feel good after taking this blow head-on. In addition, Ivan could feel that there were many powerful magical lights in the air, which were gathering from all directions because of the battle just now. Obviously, there were more powerful magical creatures in this secret realm than just the Golden Thunderbird. Bang! A few minutes later, as the wardrobe was closed again, Ivan and Yumi sat on the ground with their backs against the wardrobe. This secret realm feels so dangerous. Ivan tried to calm his breathing as much as possible, but he was still a little scared. That Thunderbird, a magical creature of that level. There are so many. In the movie, Newt's Thunderbird was only about 4 meters at most. However, compared with the one Ivan just encountered, it was like the difference between a baby and an adult. Ivan couldn't imagine how serious the consequences would be if he was entangled by several monsters of that level. You know, the flesh and fur of magical creatures are naturally very resistant to magic, which makes them immune to most magic. Otherwise, how could the obscurus released by Ivan be blocked so easily by the Thunderbird? It seems that before I have enough power, I can't go to the secret realm at will. Thinking so, Ivan put away the wardrobe and then used magic to remove the stains on his body, and then lay down on the bed. After a day's journey, staying up until midnight and exploring the secret realm for a while, Ivan was indeed a little tired. Chapter 36, The Power of the Mind. The next day, Ivan woke up from his sleep. He looked at the time, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning. The class time for junior wizards in Hogwarts is from Monday to Friday, 9 to 12 o'clock in the morning and 14 to 15:30 in the afternoon. After washing up, Ivan took out the schedule while feeding Yumi. The schedule was given to him by Hermione last night. The little witch was very serious in her studies and was probably looking forward to the new knowledge she was about to acquire. No class on Monday morning. There is a herbology class in the afternoon and the history of magic in the evening. Ivan saw that Neville had not woken up yet, so he did not wake him up, but left the dormitory quietly. Good morning. In the common room, Ivan met many seniors he did not know, including the Weasley twins and Percy, who had just become the head this year. Ivan, the little witch, was sitting on a sofa, holding a thick book about the Wizarding Society. When she saw Ivan coming out, she quickly got up and greeted him. Good morning, Hermione. Ivan saw that the little witch had been staring at Yumi in his arms, so he smiled and exchanged with her. A general history of modern wizards? Looking at the name of the book Hermione had just read, Ivan raised his eyebrows. Thinking of the little witch's habits, he couldn't help but ask, "You don't have to memorize this, do you?" Of course. Hermione stroked Yumi and said as a matter of course, "We have to live in the wizarding world. We must understand the culture and customs here. Otherwise, what if we make a fool of ourselves? But memorize it." Ivan's mouth twitched slightly. "Okay, as long as you like it." "Ivan, you should memorize it too." Hearing Hermione's words, Ivan quickly changed the subject. "Have you had breakfast?" "No." The little witch was stunned, obviously not expecting the turn to be so sudden. "Let's go." Ivan was afraid that Hermione would say something shocking again, so he took the little witch's hand and walked towards the auditorium. During the trip, they encountered a naughty automatic staircase. Fortunately, the Weasley brothers were there. The two of them arrived at the hall very easily and enjoyed a hearty breakfast here. There are no classes in the morning. What are you going to do? I want to go to the library. Well, Miss Know-It-All is about to come online. Fortunately, Ivan is also very interested in the collection of books in Hogwarts. The only problem is that with Ivan's current magic strength, the books that can really help him are almost all in the Forbidden Book area. The Forbidden Book area is not only about black magic, but also many white magic and high-end alchemy, potion formulas, which will also be classified as forbidden books. The so-called forbidden books generally refer to magic knowledge that young wizards cannot grasp and may hurt themselves by mistake. Of course, Ivan also has Dumbledore. Old Dumbledore promised him that he could go there to ask about magic knowledge at any time. It is worthy of being the oldest magic school in the world. The amount of books is really amazing. When he came to the library, Ivan deeply realized what the world's first knowledge reserve is. Although Hogwarts is not ranked high among the 11 magic schools in the world, it is undoubtedly the first in terms of foundation. In addition, Ivan found that he was wrong about one thing. The open books in the library are not useless, as he thought. On the contrary, there are countless precious magic theories in it. Although these theories are not complete spells, the conjectures and cognitions about magic they expound are real treasures. For example, the book called Basic Principles of Spells that Ivan is reading now uses nearly 100 pages to describe the various changes the author experienced in the process of casting 100 spells. The essence of spells is psychological suggestion. Any spells and gestures are to strengthen this impression. Ivan secretly said, "This is the same as I guessed." The next step is the details of casting. To release each spell, you first need to have a clear goal, such as what you want to do and what effect you intend this spell to show. This step is the foundation, and Ivan's understanding of it can be roughly summarized as imagination. To make your wishes come true, you must first think and then heart. Heart, that is, the soul, represents your strong desire to achieve your goals. Finally, solidify it with firm will to cast a complete spell. In addition, there are spells like the vanishing spell and the floating spell. The mind does not enhance the power of these spells, but simply realizes the wish. The mind includes emotions and wishes. A strong will can stabilize magic and make it more handy. Ivan, and the power of a magic depends on the emotions contained in the wizard when casting the spell. Seeing this, Ivan finally understood the relationship between the 3 of the 6 attributes: mind, thinking, and will, and magic. In simple terms, the mind is magic power and efficiency. The higher the mind attribute, the higher the upper limit of the magic power. The same magic, such as the blasting spell, its power is related to the user and the emotional state of the user when casting the spell. If the wizard's mind attribute is only 1, then even if he casts the blasting spell in the most angry state, the result is just to destroy a house. Peter Pettigrew in the original book once used a blasting spell to destroy a street. In Ivan's estimation, Peter Pettigrew's mental attribute should be 3 and no more than 4 at most. By analogy, if a wizard with a mental attribute of 5 casts this magic, Ivan thinks the effect it can achieve will be beyond imagination. Maybe a blasting spell will destroy a mountain. Imagine the end of Fantastic Beasts 2, when Credence's suppressed explosion blew up a cliff thousands of meters away with one blow, which shows the horror of this kind of simple destructive magic. Of course, Credence's magic bullet is the result of pure magic release, which has nothing to do with the mind. The influence of the mind is more like a multiplier, which can amplify the original magic by geometric multiples. The love magic mentioned in the original book. Ivan thought of the love magic that Lily released before her death, which is the passive resistance spell. This is a very rare and powerful spell that can resist the killing curse. The magic power requirement of the passive resistance spell is not low, at least it must be above 3 points. After meeting this requirement, the passive resistance spell requires enough love from the caster. The power of love will greatly strengthen the passive resistance spell, thus showing a qualitative change of 1 + 1 greater than 2. Even Voldemort cannot touch Harry because of this spell. In theory, any magic can be infused with the power of the mind. This is Ivan's feeling when practicing spells, but the process is not smooth and even extremely difficult. Ivan's mind attribute is only 2 points. Ivan can't control the 2 points of mind at all, let alone use it. Fortunately, even without the blessing of the mind, the magic composed of magic power is still extremely powerful. This also reflects the importance of magic power and powerful spells. After all, even if you have 5 points of mind for a repulsion spell, its power will never exceed the blasting spell. Chapter 37, The Importance of Will. The thinking attribute is related to the refinement of a magic and various changes. In Ivan's opinion, The best way to embody this attribute is transfiguration. With the improvement of the thinking attribute, the transformed things will be more vivid, and those extremely complex alchemy and potion science all require wizards to have excellent thinking. In addition, the thinking attribute is also closely related to reaction speed, calculation ability, and memory. Of the three basic attributes, thinking has the highest cost performance. This is Ivan's judgment. Because thinking involves a lot of things, the mind is a hidden attribute because the upper limit is not used most of the time. Especially in learning, the mind attribute is really useless. Then there is will. The role of will is also clearly stated in this book, that is, safety. There are many dangerous magics in the wizard world, among which black magic is the most. In this world, the difference between black magic and white magic lies in the different directions of their exploration. First of all, black magic explores the body and soul, which belongs to the wizard's internal research, while white magic is more about changing the outside world. Wind, rain, thunder and lightning, time and space, material structure, etc. These are the domains of white magic. In contrast, the curses, evil spells, and poisonous curses of black magic are about how to kill a life and how to make the body and soul of a life suffer. In addition, most black magic requires negative emotions, which makes many black wizards eventually go astray. Perhaps some people will say that power is not good or bad, and people are good or bad. However, this statement is not universal in the HP world. Black magic is something that really distorts the body and soul. Without a strong enough will, wizards cannot bear that price at all. Wizards with strong wills can be immune to the side effects of black magic, and even directly immune to most black magic. This is something Ivan did not expect. It turns out that the will attribute is also related to magic resistance. The two attributes of mind and what can be said to complement each other. The mind affects the strength of magic, but powerful magic is inevitably accompanied by the disadvantages of being difficult to control and easy to hurt oneself. So at this time, the will needs to meet the standard and never avoid the loss of control of magic. The best example here is a Nimigus transformation. Ivan is a natural metamorphosis, but his transformation is limited to humans, and he cannot transform into other creatures. According to the original book, a Nimigus transformation is extremely dangerous. If there is any omission, it will leave permanent damage. The damage includes but is not limited to turning into a monster, being unable to change back from animal form, leaving animal characteristics on the body, leaving the habits of the transformed animal, losing the human mind, etc. If the will is high enough, then any magical transformation, even blood transformation, will become extremely safe. Even if there is a mistake, a strong will can stabilize the magic power and prevent external forces from causing harm to the body. So that's it, Ivan said inwardly. The mind vents outward, the will stabilizes itself, and the role of thinking is to make the two more perfect and delicate. Of course, the basis of all this is still magic. Without magic, no matter how high your three-dimensional attributes are, you can't cast even the simplest lighting spell. Ivan's soul, 5 magic, 5 physique, 1 thinking, 3 mind, 2 will, 2 current potential points, 0 after raising his soul to 5 points. Ivan began to think about the next attribute improvement. In addition to the unknown role of constitution, Ivan already has a clear idea of how to add points to the 3 dimensions. Mind and will need to be synchronized. When the mind is high, the upper limit of magic power increases, but without enough will to control it, it will harm others and yourself. Ivan looked at the mind that had reached 3 points. According to his advanced point addition theory, if he gets more potential points next, he plans to invest them in thinking. Of course, you can also try to add 1 point of constitution to see what the constitution attribute is useful for. After spending a morning in the library, Ivan and Hermione read a lot of books, but Ivan did not find any books about the concept of constitution in them. This matter made Ivan very confused. Fortunately, Ivan still has old Dumbledore. He plans to go to the principal's office after the history of magic tonight. It was noon. After lunch, Ivan and Hermione returned to the common room and separated here. Yumi is so cute. Can I take her home? Hermione made such a request. And Yumi also liked the little witch, so Ivan asked her to help take care of her, and the advantage was that Hermione could hold Yumi to sleep. You mean Crookshanks? As for cats, the more the better. Great, I will take good care of this child. After that, Hermione jumped away. They had a herbology class in the afternoon, which was the first class for the two after they came to Hogwarts, so Ivan also needed to go to the dormitory to prepare. At the stairs, Ivan met Ronald and Harry, who were yawning. Morning, Ivan. Morning. Ivan smiled and greeted the two, but soon, Ivan heard the discussion coming from the common room. It's over there, look. Where? Next to the tall, red-haired boy. The one with glasses? Did you see his face? Did you see his scar? Ivan knew that this was the beginning of the school day that Mr. Savior would inevitably encounter, and he patted Harry, who was a little overwhelmed. Get used to it. Ivan didn't care much about Harry's affairs. Voldemort possessed Quirrell and planned to steal the Philosopher's Stone, and Dumbledore planned to use this to give Harry a trial to cultivate his courage and ability. As for whether Dumbledore would include Ivan in the rescue team, he didn't care. After all, if Dumbledore really taught him valuable magical knowledge, it would be natural for Ivan to give him feedback. Maybe others are worried about Voldemort and afraid that he will come back again. But in Ivan's eyes, Voldemort is just like that. Let alone other things, just based on Ivan's current attributes. Even if he doesn't improve, he is confident that he will be invincible when Voldemort comes in the 4th year. Peak 5 magic and soul are not for show. Ivan is not inferior to Voldemort at all. Moreover, living in the wizarding world, Ivan will sooner or later confront Voldemort, an unstable factor. In this case, why does Ivan change the plot? According to the prophecy, let Voldemort die in the hands of Harry and the Gryffindor Swordmaster. Isn't it better? Chapter 38, Herbal Medicine Lesson. Olby is really scheming. He made a deal with me early on. Yes, a deal. Dumbledore will try his best to train Ivan and save his life, and Ivan will watch this play peacefully. In total, it took only 4 or 5 years, and Ivan felt that he did not suffer any loss. Hey, Neville, what are you looking for? Thinking so, Ivan walked into the dormitory, but found Neville rummaging through boxes and cabinets looking for something. Ivan, the shy boy looked up and saw Ivan. His eyes moistened instantly. My leaf, it's gone again. Ivan shook his head helplessly. He felt that he needed to cast a marking spell on Leaf. He comforted Neville and told him that Leaf remembered the way and would go home by himself. To Ivan's surprise, Neville actually believed his lies and really calmed down. No, it may also be that he forgot Leaf. Ivan silently mourned for Leaf in his heart and said, Neville, are you ready for the herbology class in the afternoon? There are classes in the afternoon? Ivan was completely speechless. He really didn't know what to say to Neville. Because the child was cursed with forgetfulness when he was a child, his brain is not very good, he is very slow, and his forgetfulness is incredible. But Ivan didn't dislike Neville. Looking at Neville, Ivan was like facing a young, stupid brother. He felt that he had the responsibility to take care of this silly roommate. To prevent accidents, I will help you hold the books for the herbology class. Ivan found 2 books for the herbology class, cast quickly shrink on them, and then stuffed the 2 mahjong-sized books into his pockets. You go to eat first. Harry and Ronald are going too. Remember to go to the herbology classroom with them. If he didn't say this, Ivan felt that the child would probably forget about the herbology class after dinner. I just have a bad memory, Neville said timidly, but I still know that I have to go to class. At the end, Neville added 2 more words unconfidently. Maybe even he doubted the credibility of what he said, because he always forgets these things. Alas, Ivan had nothing to say. He sighed and gave up the idea of resting in the dormitory. Forget it. I'll take you to the cafeteria. Ivan, it's just right. I can visit the castle of Hogwarts. Walking in the corridors of Hogwarts, Ivan looked at the ghosts flying by. They greeted the little wizards coming and going, among which the Weasley brothers were the happiest. I have to admit that the Weasley twins are really the pistachios of Hogwarts, providing laughter to the people around them all the time. Hi, Ivan. George saw Ivan wandering alone and stopped him by the neck in a very familiar manner. "Where's your girlfriend? Why aren't you with her?" "Hey, George." Ivan knew he had no ill intentions, but he still reminded him not to say that in front of Hermione. "I know, and I'm Fred." "That's right." Fred on the other side said, "I'm George." Ivan smiled playfully. He didn't say it clearly, but just stared at the twins silently, which made the two of them a little scared. "Okay, I admit I'm George." George raised his hands in surrender and asked, "How did you find us?" It's not the first time that the two have played tricks to confuse their brothers, but this is the first time that they have been seen through so easily. "Because the magic power in you is different," Ivan simply replied, and then walked towards a yard outside the auditorium under the puzzled eyes of the brothers. Next, Ivan visited the entire first floor, including the lobby, the viaduct, and the towers of Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, until he felt that the time was almost up, and then he leisurely came to the greenhouse at the edge of the school. Professor Sprout had been waiting here for a long time, and Ivan saw Hermione and Neville, who came with Ronald and Harry. "Neville, your book." Ivan removed the spell on the book and returned it to its original size, then handed the book to Neville. Thank you." The shy boy held the herb textbook in his arms, while Hermione quickly came to Ivan and shared with him the new knowledge he had gained in the library in the afternoon. "By the way, have you memorized the contents of the herb course?" Ivan didn't know how to complain about Hermione, so he could only choose to ignore it. "Are you all here, kids?" Gryffindor's herb course was taken with Hufflepuff. Professor Sprout was a fat, middle-aged witch. She was a very gentle person, and Ivan felt more like a country aunt than a magic teacher. In the herb course, Professor Sprout took out many interesting herbs and explained to the students their uses and the significance of learning this course. Of course, for most students, the content of the herb course can basically be divided into knowing herbs, taking care of herbs, and using herbs. Hufflepuff and Gryffindor students have a good relationship. During the whole class, everyone was very well-behaved and followed Professor Sprout's lead to admire the exotic flowers and plants that she carefully cultivated in the greenhouse. Suddenly, Ivan noticed a familiar plant. It looked a bit like cauliflower, with green leaves wrapped around a red mouth with pitted teeth in the mouth, which looked very strange. "Ivan." Hermione noticed Ivan's gaze. This is biting cabbage, right?" Biting cabbage. An important weapon in a Hogwarts game that Ivan played before crossing over. Once created a new era of don't learn black magic. Join Hufflepuff Herbology. This guy is very strong. Ivan couldn't help but make a joke with Hermione. But unfortunately, the little witch didn't get his joke at all, and instead really began to observe this biting cabbage carefully. I was just joking." Ivan has been using both his spiritual vision and magic eyes since he came in. He said that the biting cabbage was powerful, but that was just a joke. Spiritual vision can sense the state and even the emotions of these plants and magical plants. The magic eye is even more amazing. It observes things from the essence. Therefore, in Ivan's perception, the biting cabbage has almost no secrets. He can see that it is solidified with a variety of magic. Unfortunately, Ivan's current magic attainments are too shallow, and he cannot understand the meaning of these magic traces. Chapter 39. The Amazing Herbology Professor. At this moment, a student stumbled and knocked down a row of flower pots on the side. The next moment, a series of crackling sounds were heard. As the student's face turned pale, Professor Sprout and a group of young wizards turned back. "Wow!" But before everyone could react, a piercing scream rang in their ears. Everyone felt dizzy, and even the glass on the top of the greenhouse was shattered. Suddenly, the young wizards covered their heads and were in great pain. "Be quiet." Seeing this, Ivan took a step forward and pressed his palm against the thing that made a loud noise on the ground without waiting for Professor Sprout to draw out his wand. He did not cast magic, but simply cut off the raging magic. This strange and terrifying sound wave is a kind of magic that Ivan has never seen in a book. It is not a spell, but is engraved in the strange plant body on the ground. When a mechanism is in place, it will be triggered. Ivan noticed this and was able to use his magic to interrupt the magic on the plant and force it to stop. It sounds simple, but it is extremely difficult to do in practice. Because normal people will never have an eye that can see the microscopic world and traces of magic. Oh, the scream of the Medra grass stopped abruptly, which made Professor Sprout's hand holding the wand pause. The Dean of Hufflepuff checked the student's physical condition as soon as possible. Seeing that everyone was fine, but just a little dizzy from the noise, he was relieved. Child. Sprout noticed Ivan. It was this child who stopped a riot just now. The Medra grass in the Hogwarts greenhouse is still in the cultivation stage. Their screams are terrible and can make people faint after a long time, but it is not fatal. But even so, Sprout didn't want to see his students being sent to the school hospital in the first class. My name is Ivan. Ivan Ambrosius, Professor. Oh, Mr. Ambrosius. Professor Sprout's eyes were full of admiration and gratitude. Thanks to you, the children were not hurt. Gryffindor plus 20 points. Hwa-la-la. After the voice fell, the little wizards who knew what had just happened applauded Ivan. Professor Sprout did not blame the little wizard who made trouble. She put the inexplicably sleeping Medra grass back into the flower pot. This is Mandrake. You will learn about this magical plant in the 2nd grade. She introduced the habits and dangers of Medra grass to everyone and thanked Ivan again. Ivan, how did you do it? Hermione didn't understand what Ivan did at all. He just stretched out his hand and said a word, and the Medra grass instantly calmed down. Ivan did not hide it from Hermione, but the magic theory he talked about was really difficult for the little witch to understand. In the end, Hermione could only attribute it to Ivan's unique magical talent, which made the little witch quite envious. Sprout and other freshmen also heard the conversation between the two, especially the former. Ivan's magic node theory really shocked her. On the first night of school, Ivan and others came into contact with the history of magic, which is known as the most boring in Hogwarts. It must be said that Professor Spence, the ghost lecturer, really refreshed Ivan's understanding of history class. He had never heard such a boring class. While Ivan and others were taking night classes, Sprout found McGonagall. Minerva. One of them is the headmaster of Hufflepuff, and the other is the headmaster of Gryffindor. They have always had a good relationship. Pomona. McGonagall looked at Sprout in confusion and asked, "What's the matter?" "The new student in your college," Sprout said with a little excitement. "I have never seen a little wizard with such talent." "You are talking about?" McGonagall. "Ivan." "Yes, Ivan Ambrosius." Professor Sprout was extremely envious. He protected the students in my class, and I gave him 20 points for this. It was incredible that he could appease the Mandrake with just one sentence. In addition, in the subsequent visit, Sprout found that Ivan had a high affinity with plants, and the flowers and plants in the greenhouse liked this child. Hearing this, Professor McGonagall's face was full of joy. The older cat lady said in a slightly joyful tone, "That child is a natural-born great wizard." Professor Sprout didn't understand the meaning of this sentence until McGonagall told her about Ivan's life experience. Merlin's beard, Sprout. I always thought that it was just a legend. Professor Sprout felt that McGonagall was so lucky that he just went out to guide 2 freshmen and found talents like Ivan and Hermione. Yes, Hermione also impressed Sprout deeply. No matter what question Sprout asked, the little witch was the first to raise her hand to answer, and she was 100% accurate. Ahem, McGonagall coughed lightly, and she suppressed her pride and complacency. You have to understand, Pomona, the Sorting Hat can always find the characteristics of children. Sprout was like eating a lemon. When the Sorting Hat sorted the Weasley twins into Gryffindor last time, didn't McGonagall still feel that the Sorting Hat was deliberately targeting her? Fortunately, this is Sprout, and the head of Badger House is just envious. If it was Flitwick who was here, I'm afraid he would drag McGonagall to the Sorting Hat to ask for an explanation on the spot. After the history of magic, Ivan separated from Hermione. He asked the little witch to help feed Yumi, and then walked towards the floor where the principal's office was. Sizzle honey candy. After calling the command, the gargoyle statue made way, and Ivan went up the stairs and knocked on the door of the principal's office. Principal. The principal's office was still the same as when Ivan came last time, but the space was a little bigger than before. The old man paced behind the desk. This was his habit every night. He liked to circle around the desk alone. How do you feel about the first day? Dumbledore didn't look like the greatest white wizard in the world in front of Ivan. Instead, he looked like a kind elder, very amiable. Great, Ivan smiled and said, except for the history of magic, Cuthbert Binns' class is really a bit. I don't understand. I mean, the professor of the history of magic is a ghost. I thought about this question when I was in school. Dumbledore, maybe it's because ghosts don't need to be paid? Chapter 40. Levels of Transfiguration. The old and the young talked half-jokingly for a few words before they began to teach formally. Dumbledore first examined Ivan's current level and found that he had mastered most of the spells in the spell textbook in advance, which amazed him. When I was your age, I didn't master so much magic. Dumbledore sighed and asked, so, Ivan, what do you think magic is? What is magic? For this question, if we exclude the idealistic part, Ivan's summary is basically one sentence. It's a wish come true. Yes, a wish come true. Dumbledore did not hide his secrets. He first showed Ivan a silent and wandless spell, turning a candlestick into a lifelike owl. Ivan turned on his magic eye and spiritual vision. He carefully observed the owl and found a magic halo emanating from it and the traces of magic hidden in its body. It was delicate and complete, almost indistinguishable from a real owl. Amazing. Ivan always knew how powerful Dumbledore was. However, when he really met him, Ivan was still shocked by the high level of magic of the old man. This is transfiguration, a magic that requires the combination of thinking, will, and magic. In Ivan's view, transfiguration is a magic system with a very low lower limit but a very high upper limit, and many magics contain the shadow of transfiguration. This is the limit of transfiguration that I can reach. Ivan, can you understand what I mean? Well, Ivan asked, because it is fake after all, right? Yes. Dumbledore smiled and nodded. He was very optimistic about Ivan. In addition, in terms of attitude towards Ivan, Dumbledore adopted a completely different set for Voldemort. That is, trust and sincerity. The old man did not hide his private, and said bluntly, the basis of transfiguration is the change in form. The so-called form is the appearance, but it does not have real functions. Above it, it is the transformation of essence. For example, a stone is turned into a clock, and the latter can be used as a real clock when the magic continues. Higher levels of transfiguration involve the mind. That is, the transformed things have their own thoughts, such as the Sorting Hat and Ronald's flying car. For example, the paintings here. Dumbledore gestured to Ivan to look at the portraits of the headmaster on the surrounding walls. Magic portraits that can speak and have self-awareness are also the product of transfiguration. In Dumbledore's summary, the above three stages are not difficult for Ivan. The only difference is how much time Ivan needs to spend to master it thoroughly. As for what comes after that, speaking of this, Dumbledore glanced at Ivan. Minerva told me that you can change your appearance? Yes, the book says that this is called transfiguration, which is a natural magical ability. Suddenly, Ivan reacted. You mean transfiguration is a higher level of transfiguration? Permanent transfiguration. Before Dumbledore spoke, Ivan had already understood that the fourth level was different from the previous three levels. I changed my appearance, which is a real change, and does not require magic to maintain. And this also means that as long as Ivan does not change back, he can even live his whole life in the appearance of someone else. You are really smart, Ivan. Dumbledore praised. As you think, transfiguration and animagus transfiguration, the former can completely change a person's appearance, and it will not be like this owl, which has a time limit. Similarly, the animals that animagus transforms into can maintain the form of the animal permanently. Not only that, take Professor McGonagall as an example. After this old cat lady turned into a cat, catnip was also effective for her, because from a biological point of view, the transformation of animagus is to completely turn into a certain animal. From the inside out, even the genes have changed. Unfortunately, except for animagus, wizards have never been able to master the true meaning of transfiguration. Except Dumbledore paused, and Ivan immediately thought of what he was going to say. The Philosopher's Stone? Dumbledore was a little surprised. He didn't expect Ivan's thinking to be so astute. According to Dumbledore's original idea, he wanted to arouse Ivan's interest through today's teaching so that he could participate in Harry Potter's adventure. Of course, Dumbledore would not let Ivan really participate. After all, he was too supermodel. The levels arranged on the fourth floor were no different from playing house in front of Ivan. Dumbledore just hoped that Ivan could give Harry a little help or join him and look after him. Unfortunately, the plan was declared over before it even started. The Philosopher's Stone made by Nicholas Flamel has the effect of turning stones into gold and making elixirs of immortality. The Philosopher's Stone, also known as the Philosopher's Stone and the Fifth Element, is the highest realm of alchemy. Apart from other things, just turning stones into gold is a permanent deformation of the material level, which is something that contemporary wizards cannot do. And following this topic, Dumbledore began to explain the basics of magic to Ivan. Yes, the basics and the most basic part. Ivan did not dislike it, but listened very seriously. Because this knowledge came from Dumbledore, it was the valuable experience he summed up over the years. From Dumbledore, Ivan learned the principles of wizard spellcasting, which benefited him a lot, and even improved his level of wandless spellcasting. Professor, is there a higher level above permanent transformation? Dumbledore thought for a moment, but did not answer immediately. Instead, he told Ivan not to go too deep. In the wizarding world, there's an insurmountable problem, and that is magical transformation. Magic transformation? Ivan did not understand the meaning of this word for a while. What is magical transformation? Fox. Dumbledore called over the dozing Phoenix Fox, who landed on the desk singing a sweet song. Chapter 41: The Value of Wall Hangings. Ivan, do you know the essential difference between magical animals and wizards? This, Ivan said, the bodies of magical animals can be used as materials for alchemy and potions, and wizards, whether it is their blood, hair, or bones, are no different from muggles. Yes, wizards and muggles are the same. This statement is not suitable for the wizarding world, and Dumbledore would not make such remarks in public. But there are only the two of them here, and Dumbledore believes that Ivan thinks so too. Ivan asked in confusion. But wizards have magic, but muggles don't. The key is not magic, but understanding magic. Understanding magic. Seeing that Ivan was getting more and more confused, Dumbledore smiled and said, "Yes, Ivan, what do you think magic is like? I mean, what does it consist of, and what kind of state is it in? If this is not the world of Harry Potter, but something like Warcraft, D&D, or Otherworld, Ivan would definitely think that magic is a kind of energy, or an element or aura floating between heaven and earth. However, the magic in this world is not a kind of energy, and it is even impossible to determine whether it is material. Indescribable. Ivan expressed his thoughts. Magic is ethereal. It is invisible, but it can be transformed into the power of wizards, making our wishes come true. Yes, invisible and extremely powerful. Dumbledore nodded and said, "We can only see the manifestation of magic, but we can't explore it itself. This is transfiguration, a higher level than permanent transformation, magic transformation. The so-called magic transformation is to transform magical objects or even creatures. Wizards can't do this, because they can transform metals, plants, and animals, but they can't transform magic. If one day, Ivan can transform a stone or even a ball of air into a fire dragon according to his own imagination, and let it exist forever and even reproduce, then Ivan is no longer a wizard, but should be called a god. Even Merlin and the four giants 1,000 years ago can't do this." I understand. Ivan remembered Dumbledore's previous warning. "I won't touch those dangerous powers before I get your approval." Magic transformation can be called the creation of new substances and life. This is the realm of God. At Ivan's level, it is enough to just understand that there is such a level. If you really study it in depth, you will cause irreversible damage if you're not careful, which is too dangerous. In addition, Ivan still believes in Dumbledore. Apart from Harry Potter's plan, Dumbledore's character and personality are almost impeccable. Ivan doesn't think that he can do whatever he wants with the system. "Thank you, Professor." It was almost time. Ivan said goodnight to Dumbledore, and then got up and returned to the Gryffindor common room. In the spells class on Tuesday morning, Gryffindor students took it with Ravenclaw. The spells teacher Flitwick has some goblin blood, which requires him to stand on a pile of books to reach the desk. Flitwick is very approachable. While calling the roll, he chatted with the students he called, and soon became familiar with the little wizards. After that, Professor Flitwick started today's class. He first explained some simple basic and theoretical knowledge about spells. Ivan could hear that Flitwick's teaching level was very high. Many complex theories became easy to understand after he spoke. Throughout the entire class, Flitwick's in-depth and easy-to-understand explanations benefited Ivan a lot, and many of his previous questions were also answered at this moment. In the middle, Flitwick also asked a few questions about basic spell theory. Hermione successfully beat the Eagles next door and got 3 credits for Gryffindor, which made the little witch very happy, as expected of the professor of spells at Hogwarts. During the break, Ivan said to Hermione beside him, "Professor Flitwick's attainments and spells are undoubtedly at the top level." "Yeah." Hermione also nodded repeatedly, and the little witch's eyes were full of thirst for knowledge. "That Ivan." Neville, who was sitting on the other side of Ivan, scratched his head. I didn't understand." Unlike the 2 academic masters, Neville listened to Flitwick's lectures as if he was listening to a heavenly book. "Actually, we are too." Ronald and Harry were the same as him. The 3 of them couldn't understand, not because of Professor Flitwick, but simply because the 3 of them were not suitable for this style of teaching. How to say it? Some people are only good at talking, but when it comes to doing it, they are a mess. Harry is a man of action. After 2 days of observation, Ivan found that Harry is the type who is more interested in hand-feeling than brain. In short, Harry should not listen to any theories. Just give him the spell and the wand, and this child's performance will surely surprise everyone. Of course, Ronald and Neville are really not good enough. Ronald is just an ordinary person in the wizarding world, and it is difficult for him to achieve too much in the future. As for Neville, his talent is actually not inferior to Harry. The only problem is that Neville is too unconfident. As we all know, the magic in this world is closely related to thinking, mind, and will. In Ivan's understanding, thinking affects the speed of learning magic, mind affects the strength of magic, and will affect the control of magic. Hermione's thinking is very high, so she can learn most of the magic at once. But because of the lack of mental attributes, Hermione finds it difficult to cast powerful magic, which is her shortcoming. Neville is too slow, and his thinking can almost be called a negative number. So no matter how high Neville's mind and will are, he can't learn it. The first step is difficult, but the rest is much easier. Ivan thought to himself, if Neville can get started with a certain magic, his performance will probably not be worse than Harry's. Harry's mental attribute is very high, and his will is also amazing, but thinking each attribute can affect more than one thing. For example, thinking includes memory, calculation and analysis, and nerve reaction. Therefore, even if it is the same thinking attribute, the performance will be different if the distribution is different. Ivan has observed Hermione, and her ratio of the 3 is about 5 to 4 to 1. Her reaction speed is faster than that of ordinary people, but not too much. In contrast, Harry's thinking attribute is seriously biased, and all points are on reaction speed, reaching an astonishing 1:1:8. In Ivan's words, Harry is a natural combat wizard. In actual combat, 3 Hermiones together may not be able to beat 1 Harry, even if the latter only mastered a disarming spell. Of course, Ivan's system point addition is to improve any attribute to the extreme. So once he adds some thinking, the performance of the following 3 will reach the best state. In terms of data, it is 10 hours, 10 minutes, and 10 seconds. Yes, the sum of Ivan's data is not 10, but 30. The value of the wall hanging is obvious. Chapter 42. Give the spells professor a little Ivan shock. Next, let's learn the first spell of the year, the illumination spell. Professor Flitwick's voice was shrill but not unpleasant, but rather playful and cute. When you recite the spell, make sure you pronounce the words clearly. Follow me and recite Lumishine. Seeing that the young wizards from the Lion and Eagle houses were almost familiar with the spell, Professor Flitwick let them practice freely. Luma shine. For a while, the sound of the spell rose and fell. The difficulty of the illumination spell was very low, and the self-suggestion of the spell was not a hardship for the young wizards. The key was to accurately apply a certain degree of magic power. Because they had never used a wand to cast magic, the young wizards could not make their wands light up, even if they had a clear goal. Your pronunciation is wrong. Hermione corrected Harry and Neville's pronunciation, while Ivan sat there quietly, thinking about the problems he encountered in the illumination spell. The magic knowledge that Dumbledore taught Ivan was mainly theoretical, laying the foundation for going further in the future. There was nothing wrong with this. After all, Dumbledore was the headmaster. As for the specific subjects, there are corresponding professors in charge. Dumbledore will not take over the work of professors of various subjects, and he does not have so much time. Ivan's current study plan is to study in the library first, and then go to the professors for advice when he encounters something he does not understand. If even the professors cannot answer, then go to Dumbledore. Oh look, Miss Granger did it. At this time, Professor Flitwick obviously noticed the light blooming from the tip of Hermione's wand. He jumped up and down, excitedly praising the little witch's talent for spells. Because of Miss Granger, Gryffindor plus 5 points. In the first class, the first little wizard who successfully casts a spell deserves a reward. After that, several Ravenclaw students cast the illumination spell. The difficulty of the illumination spell is very low. Ivan takes it as the basic unit of 1, which shows that its threshold is that almost any little wizard can quickly master it. In this way, time passed by minute. Ivan estimated that there were about 10 minutes left in the spells class, and there were only 5 young wizards who successfully cast spells. Most of them were Ravenclaws, and Gryffindors only had Hermione and Harry, who received her guidance and correction. It should be about the same. Ivan didn't think it was strange. There were only more than 20 people in the whole class, and a 1/4 success rate was not low. Lumos! Lumos! Bang! However, just as Ivan was about to raise his hand and ask Professor Flitwick about the illumination spell, his expression suddenly became serious. What happened? All the young wizards in the spells class were startled by the sudden explosion. Even Professor Flitwick didn't expect this to happen. The fairy-like dean of the Eagle Academy took short legs and ran quickly towards the explosion. Flitwick was stunned for a moment. He saw a circle of light golden film, with Harry, Ronald, and others as the boundary, surrounding a boy with a black face and hair turned into a ball. He was relieved to see that the student only made himself dirty and was not actually hurt. Are you okay, Seamus? Ivan unlocked the magic barrier, waved his wand, and cast 2 spells quietly. Clean up. Restore to the original. In the blink of an eye, the table that was originally cracked and black became brand new, and even Seamus' hair and clothes were restored to their original state. Oh, what beautiful cleaning and repairing spells. Professor Flitwick widened his eyes and looked at Ivan in disbelief. I have never seen a first-year wizard use them so smoothly. Gryffindor plus 10 points. Thank you, Professor. Ivan asked Seamus a few questions, and the boy said he was fine and thanked Ivan for his help. It's okay. Ivan solved this emergency and then asked, Professor, I have a few questions to ask you. Oh, of course. Flitwick was flattered and said, What do you want to know, little Ivan? He likes students with a strong desire for knowledge, not to mention Ivan, a genius with extraordinary talent and politeness. That's right. Ivan smiled slightly, his tone calm with confidence and curiosity. In the process of casting the illumination spell, I found that the spell is not a necessary condition. It is just a psychological suggestion to make us firm in our ideas. Well, yes, the wizard's silent casting is based on this. After Flitwick finished speaking, Ivan put the wand on the table and then extended his index finger. A ball of white light appeared at the fingertips, bright but not dazzling, and instantly attracted the attention of all students. Merlin's beard. Flitwick looked at Ivan in amazement. The little wizard in front of him not only abandoned the spell of the illumination spell, but also did not use the wand. What does this mean? Silent and wandless casting, the top casting technique in the wizarding world. How did you do it? Flitwick had seen African wizards casting spells with gestures, but that kind of casting technique was essentially drawing spells in the air. Just like the spell of Avada eating Big Melon is a lightning symbol, many magics will draw their own trajectories in the air when they're cast with a wand. But Ivan Flitwick looked very carefully. Ivan did not use his fingers to engrave the runes. He really completed the process of mobilizing magic power with his mind. Some insignificant little tricks. Ivan picked up the wand again. In fact, what I want to ask is not the casting technique, but the same spell because of the different magic power mobilization resulting in the change of magic effect. What? This time, not only the group of young wizards did not understand, but even Flitwick could not react. It's like this. Ivan felt that words were not enough, and he planned to show the results of his research in the past half-month. Professor, look, this is a fluorescent spell cast with standard magic power. Ivan read the spell accurately this time, and the tip of the wand burst into a bright light. Ivan then began to change the output of magic power and quickly pointed the wand to the top of his head. But if I use 10 times the magic power to cast, it will be like this. Buzz. In an instant, everyone felt that a very dazzling light was lit above their heads. Fortunately, everyone focused their attention on Ivan. Otherwise, it would have been like what happened with him and Yumi, with his eyes stinging and tears streaming down his face. Chapter 43, Self-Created Spell. What happened? Just now it seemed to suddenly become very bright. Ivan ignored the little wizards who were in a mess. He looked at Flitwick and explained. In an instant, a dazzling light that was enough to sting the eyes burst out. Flitwick looked at Ivan blankly. He felt that he had met a fake little wizard. Is this something that a little wizard would find? What is magic? It is not a kind of energy, and there is no saying that magic spells can be made stronger by infusing more magic into them. The power of magic spells lies in emotions, that is, the mind. The angrier and more eager you are, the stronger the magic will be. The 10 times magic power proposed by Ivan is more like using 10 times the strength to lift a stone. Because of the excessive strength, the stone flew out uncontrollably. Oh, little Ivan. Flitwick, who understood this and realized what Ivan was researching, was extremely anxious. This is too dangerous, you. How can you change the magic of a spell at will? No. How did you change the magic? This is something Flitwick couldn't imagine. You know, most of the wizards in this world can't feel the existence of magic. Only a very few. Flitwick couldn't explain what very few meant. He didn't know the importance of the soul attribute to the perception of magic. In short, the wizards in this world cast spells purely based on instinct or intuition. But what about Ivan? Because of his soul far beyond that of ordinary people, Ivan can sense the relationship between this spell and magic when casting. Just like he judged the magic of the illumination spell as one of the standard magic. Based on precise casting again and again, Ivan learned a lot of spells and then compared the differences between them. In this way, Ivan, like practice makes perfect, relied on amazing instinct and intuition to master how to control magic power, thereby changing the manifestation of magic. Oh my God, you are so brave. Professor Flitwick naturally knew the relationship between magic power and magic, which is a very advanced theory of spells. Wizards in the wizarding world can be simply divided into 4 stages, namely young wizards, adult wizards, magic masters, and great magicians. These 4 stages are just the distinction of magic attainments and have nothing to do with strength, status, etc. For example, Nicholas Flamel, he is a great magician, but because of his old age, Nicholas Flamel's magic power is like that of an old man, and he can no longer move many things. Similarly, most of the magic masters in the world are either professors in various colleges or stay in their own laboratories to explore the mysteries of magic alone. Luna's mother, Pandora, is a magic master in spells. Pandora likes to study various spells, and what she is doing is exactly what Ivan is touching now, verifying the changes of spells by changing the strength of magic. This kind of research is extremely dangerous, and one careless mistake may cause the magic to get out of control. And Pandora lost her life in a spell experiment. You dare to conduct research without taking any protection. Flitwick felt his whole body trembling. and the rather sentimental short professor almost cried out of worry. I really don't know whether to say that Ivan is bold and reckless, or that he is ignorant and fearless. But Ivan succeeded. I'll pay attention to it in the future. In the future, Flitwick was about to say something, but was interrupted by Ivan. Professor, why don't you take a look at my research results? Ivan dared to do such research, exploring the changes of the same magic under different magic powers, so he was naturally fully confident. You know, Ivan is a silent one. Even if there is real danger, Ivan can instantly assimilate with the silent one to avoid various dangers. The vitality of the silent one is extremely amazing. In a state of the black storm, even if someone blows Ivan into pieces, he can recover as before through part of the remaining body. Even if Ivan can't react, the silent one will help him resist the damage. This is just like Gaara's sand in Naruto. The silent one itself is a parasitic life. It has no self-awareness, but has independent emotions and can sense danger. With double protection, Ivan is fearless. Flitwick is actually very curious. Seeing this, Ivan smiled slightly and waved his wand. Light up the way ahead. Ivan used this magic at the beginning of the school year. Its effect is to light up a ball of golden light in front of him and leave footprints shining with golden light, so that people can see the road ahead clearly. Oh, beautiful spell transformation. So beautiful. Although he told Ivan be careful, Professor Flitwick was still so happy that he wanted to jump up when he saw this magic that was a fusion of multiple spells. Ivan simply explained the principle of this magic to Flitwick. Flitwick's talent is needless to say, and he quickly understood the secret of Ivan's magic. The magic of lighting up the way ahead is not difficult. With Flitwick's spell attainments, it only takes a few days to fully master this spell, even better than Ivan's control. There is nothing strange about this. The experience of the Hogwarts professor is far beyond that of Ivan today. Ivan's advantage lies in his 5 points of magic and soul, which is the basis for his creativity. If you adjust the magic power and keep it at about 3, and think about more efficient utilization, it will become like this. Firefly glimmer. As Ivan finished speaking, the students felt that there was no change around them. The class was actually over at this time, but none of the little wizards chose to leave. The little lion looked at Ivan with admiration. Now that the Lion King was there, how could they leave? As for the little eagles, it was purely a desire for knowledge, and they wanted to see the birth of more new magic from Ivan. Professor, can you help me? Seeing that Flitwick was also confused, Ivan said, help me make the classroom darker. Oh, okay. Flitwick waved his wand lightly, and in an instant, all the windows in the classroom closed automatically to ensure that they were tightly closed. However, in the classroom that should have been dark, the tables, chairs, floors, and decorations were emitting a little blue light. This light was soft and mysterious, and the little witches exclaimed, feeling that they were in a fairy tale world. Even Professor Flitwick couldn't help but be aroused by the effect of this magic. Amazing transformation. Although the magic power required has increased, it has been distributed. Chapter 44, Famous Ivan. How did you come up with this idea, Ivan? This is the inspiration I got from the Muggle amusement park. Amusement park? Professor Flitwick tilted his head, obviously not knowing what an amusement park is. But this did not prevent him from admiring Ivan. Including the initial flashing charm, this is the 3rd new spell that Ivan has developed from the illumination charm. With such talent, Flitwick was a little impatient and said, Ivan, are you willing to share the secrets of these spells with others? Flitwick's teacher ethics is absolutely fine. If Ivan thinks this is his exclusive spell, Flitwick will never spy on it unless Ivan is willing to point out the key to casting the spell for him and acquiesce that he has mastered this magic. Of course, Ivan's answer was beyond Flitwick's expectation. He said casually, these magics are not dangerous. They're no different from other spells except that they are new. Maybe the firefly magic is a little difficult to learn. Ivan looked at other students, especially Hermione, but if any one of you is interested, you can ask me privately. I want to learn. Firefly is so beautiful. Ivan, how did you come up with it? It's amazing. For a while, several girls from Ravenclaw squeezed in front of Ivan. For beautiful things, Even a spell can attract girls' attention. Especially a genius like Ivan, who is like a light in the dark, is so charming that it attracts these girls to explore. Only Hermione, who was squeezed aside, looked at them angrily, with dissatisfaction in her eyes. I was here first. Get out of here. Stay away from my Ivan. Fortunately, Professor Flitwick cleared the scene in time, leaving Ivan alone, who seemed to have something to discuss with him. Ivan, do you know the Wizard magazine, The Future of Spells? Ivan remembered that he seemed to have seen it in a bookstore. I have seen it, but I haven't read it. This is a publication specially created for people around the world who like to study magic. Just like the status of Transfiguration today in the field of Transfiguration, the Future of Spells is the authority in the field of spells. Flitwick hopes that Ivan can publish the research results of these 3 spells. Of course, this is just my suggestion. I do. Ivan is not a person who cherishes his own magic. Unless these magics are extremely important to him, they need to be kept secret. But these 3 spells are obviously not among them. It is better to share them generously than to hold them in your hands. Firstly, this can enhance Ivan's reputation, and secondly, he can also get a reward from the Future of Spells. Most importantly, this was of great help to Ivan in expanding his network and building good relationships with a group of world-leading magic masters. After all, who would hate a talented and generous little wizard? In the following period of time, Flitwick invited Ivan to the auditorium. While eating lunch, they talked about the 3 spells and the various details of publishing them. This scene really attracted the attention of many students. The senior students did not remember Ivan, but only knew that he was a new little wizard who was assigned to Gryffindor. On the contrary, the first-year little wizards of the 3 colleges, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff, learned about another great achievement of Ivan after sharing with each other. I know him, Ivan Ambrosius. On the long table of Hufflepuff, a little wizard was telling senior students about Ivan's performance in the herbology class. He protected us, just raised his hand and said quiet to the mandrake, and it stopped crying. I heard that he used 3 self-created spells in the spell class, including the one that led us when we entered school. Too amazing. Is he really a little wizard? At the same time, the little eagles of Ravenclaw were also excitedly telling what happened in the spell class. He can create new spells just after entering school. Look over there. I have never seen Dean Flitwick talk to the little wizard during lunchtime. Compared with other colleges, the students of Ravenclaw admire wise men the most. They claim to be smart people, and Professor Flitwick is the best among them. But now, looking at Flitwick's expression when talking to Ivan, the excitement that makes him want to tap dance on the table shows how amazing Ivan is. On the Gryffindor side, everyone gathered together. Neville was very silent at this time. He became the focus of questioning because he was Ivan's roommate. But Neville, how would he know anything? Even if he really knew, with his introverted personality, he couldn't say anything. Humph, that's Ivan, he is. Hermione sat there, and when she saw that everyone let Neville go, she said with a little dissatisfaction, "Just what?" When everyone saw that Hermione seemed to know something, the seniors immediately came up to her, wanting to get some useful information from her. Gryffindor likes heroic deeds the most. Ivan performed so well. How could the little lions not be happy? Hermione thought for a moment, and she remembered Ivan's identity. Ambrose, the eternal family, the immortal descendant, the heir of Merlin. These titles were too dazzling. Hermione didn't want Ivan to be too prominent, so she said a few words to avoid the main point and didn't reveal Ivan's identity. This, however, compared to the other 3 colleges full of envy and praise, the atmosphere at the Slytherin table was extremely quiet. The flattery was particularly harsh in their ears. A mudblood from the Muggle world actually created and improved several spells as soon as he entered school. Why? Although the senior students of Slytherin didn't say anything, they felt very unhappy. On weekdays, the little snakes boasted that they were superior, but now a mudblood has taken away all the limelight. Ivan's excellent performance was like a slap in the face of these purebloods who regarded family and inheritance as their beliefs. Ambrosius, have you heard of such a family in the wizarding world? Malfoy has not forgotten the lesson Ivan taught him on the train. He dared not provoke Ivan in person, but he could not help belittling him in private. However, Malfoy must admit that Ivan is really amazing. Malfoy is arrogant, delicate, likes to show off and be in the limelight, but he is not blind to the gap between the two. In the original book, Malfoy and Harry love and hate each other, in addition to the initial grudge. The most important point is that Harry is not as good as the rumors say. Compared with the reputation of the Savior, after personal contact, Harry is just a lucky, scarred man in Malfoy's eyes. The same is true for Ivan. Master Long, who has not received more social beatings, will never admit that he is not as good as Ivan. Chapter 45 Cat Size No. Never heard of it. The senior Slytherin was also curious about Ivan's life experience. At least in the past 200 or 300 years, there has been no powerful wizard named Ambrosius in the wizarding world. The pureblood concept does have a certain rationality. Even for a little witch like Hermione, it is very likely that her ancestors were wizards, and then their blood appeared in her. Of course, this is just a guess. Muggles don't know the existence of wizards, and wizards don't study this issue. But according to the mainstream cognition of the wizarding world, Ivan's extraordinary magical talent undoubtedly implies that the wizard blood he inherited is extraordinary. Then he is nothing great. Malfoy expressed disdain for this. His father is a school director, and the Malfoy family is even more wealthy. Even the Dark Lord of the Year regarded his father as his right-hand man. Ivan, even if he has some magical talent, will only be able to teach at Hogwarts at best in the future. Dumbledore? Malfoy was disdainful of this. If you have the ability, kick Dumbledore down. Anyway, if you, Ivan, can become the headmaster of Hogwarts, I, Malfoy, will be afraid of you. As for now, Malfoy shifted his attention away from Ivan, stood up, and walked towards the long table of Gryffindor. Young Master Long didn't bother with Ivan. He was going to find trouble with Scarhead. Ivan noticed something strange behind him. He glanced at Malfoy, who was beginning to move closer to Harry, and vaguely guessed that friction was about to break out there. In response, Ivan smiled and thought to himself that Malfoy was indeed Harry's true love. Any other questions? No more. Ivan. Thank you, Professor. Flitwick said that he didn't need to be so polite. He was a professor, and it was his duty to help students solve their doubts. And in the conversation just now, Flitwick deeply realized Ivan's talent. Although he was just a young wizard who had been exposed to magic for less than a month, the questions and conjectures raised by Ivan surprised even a spell master like Flitwick. Professor Flitwick did not feel any trouble at all, but just told Ivan to be careful, and then happily answered many of his questions. Leave the matter of the spells being published in the magazine to me. Ivan, you don't have to worry about it. Flitwick couldn't wait to see Ivan appear in the magazine as a freshman at Hogwarts. There was no way Hogwarts was not ranked high among the 11 magic schools in the world. Thinking of the annual academic exchange meeting and talking with old friends from other countries, there was an excellent student like Ivan as a topic of conversation. Flitwick suddenly felt excited, and even his little fist couldn't help shaking slightly. Then I'll leave it to you, Professor. Ivan couldn't help laughing at Flitwick's little movements. There's also a Transfiguration class this afternoon. Ivan has been looking forward to the Transfiguration class of the older cat girl for a long time. Before school started, Ivan had studied Transfiguration on his own, but there were too many obscure parts in it. Transfiguration is different from ordinary spells. It does not have a fixed magic base, which makes Ivan unable to analyze it in detail, like improving and creating spells. How to say it? If the illumination spell is still set to 1 scale magic, then Transfiguration is a spell with a lower limit of 0 and an upper limit of infinity. This spell contains the mind, will, and thinking, and through different proportions of the three, it produces a variety of effects. As for the specific principle, 2 words idealism. Yes, it is idealism. This is the conclusion Ivan drew after studying all the Transfiguration textbooks at Hogwarts. The basis of Transfiguration is idealism. What do you want it to be? What attributes do you want it to have? And your subconscious definition of it. Then, the transformation was successful. FK. Ivan initially had the scientific thinking of his previous life, but he soon found that it was too naive to talk about science in the world of magic. To learn Transfiguration, one must first abandon the materialism of the previous life. Transfiguration is the most buggy magic in this world. The more Ivan understood transfiguration, the more unfathomable it seemed to him. It is no exaggeration to say that once you have mastered the secret of transfiguration, the so-called wish will come true soon. Whether it is a tangible animal or plant, or a non-living thing like stone or metal, even elements such as earth, water, wind, and fire, as well as physical rules such as temperature, air pressure, gravity, and even space and time, wizards can use a transfiguration to handle it. Nothing can escape the word change. And transfiguration is to change everything in the world according to your own wishes. It is no exaggeration to say that compared with the real bosses in the wizarding world who teach transfiguration, black magic is simply weak. And now, the cat boss of Hogwarts is standing on the desk, scanning the little wizards in the classroom. Is this a Nimigus transfiguration? Ivan sat in the first row, and next to him was Hermione, the little witch was flipping through the textbook seriously. Through the magic eye and spiritual vision, Ivan discovered the difference between a Nimigus transformation and metamorphosis. The advanced stage of transfiguration that old Dumbledore mentioned is indeed fundamentally different from temporary transformation. Ivan narrowed his eyes slightly, and he thought of the flowers and trees in the wardrobe world. Interestingly, the traces of magic on the cat that Professor McGonagall turned into are very similar to the plants and animals in the wardrobe world. Why is this so? Ivan had his own guess in his mind. Could it be that the world was created by the permanent transformation that old Dumbledore said? Permanent transformation and Animagus seemingly having figured something out, Ivan closed the magic perspective and stopped thinking about it. Sharp child. Professor McGonagall noticed Ivan looking at her, but she didn't find it strange at all. I wonder how talented Ivan is in transfiguration. Thinking of Sprout and Professor Flitwick praising and envying Ivan in front of her, the corners of the cat's mouth couldn't help but curl up. Looking back, what kind of little wizards did the Sorting Hat throw into her academy? Bad boy, naughty bullet, mischievous ghost, troublemaker. I'm McGonagall, have suffered from the Weasley brothers for a long time. Cat's.jpg. Huh. Professor McGonagall thought proudly. The Sorting Hat finally did a good thing and knew whose hat it was. Eyes converged. Ivan smiled and nodded. McGonagall knew that Ivan had discovered her identity. But McGonagall did not respond to Ivan. She still waited quietly, wanting to see the real reaction of this class of students. Hurry! Just as a group of students were quietly preparing, Harry and Ronald hurried into the classroom. Caught up, Ronald saw that there was no one behind the desk and panted, "If you're late, McGonagall's face will be scary." Hearing this, Ivan glanced at the cat on the table and shook his head. Swish! Then the next moment, Professor McGonagall turned back to his original form, which really scared many young wizards present, especially Harry and Ronald, who were completely stunned. That's amazing. Thank you for your evaluation, Mr. Weasley. Professor McGonagall, maybe I should turn Mr. Potter and you into a pocket watch, so that at least one of you can keep time. We are lost, Professor. Harry was embarrassed. After all, he was late for the first Transfiguration class, and he was worried that he would leave a bad impression on McGonagall, then turn into a map. Professor McGonagall did not really blame the two. Find your seat. You don't need a map, right? After that, McGonagall walked back to the desk and started the formal class. Everyone opened the textbook. McGonagall explained the basic principles of transfiguration to everyone, as well as some precautions, such as following Gamp's basic laws of transfiguration and the 5 major exceptions. Does anyone know what the 5 exceptions are? After the words fell, a little hand was raised without a doubt. It was Hermione. Miss Granger, you answer it. There are 5 exceptions to Gamp's basic law of transfiguration, namely, the limit of food transfiguration, the inability to permanently transform living and dead things, the inability to produce magical items by transfiguration, the inability to change the number of transfiguration, and the inability to create something out of nothing by transfiguration. Very good. Professor McGonagall smiled and nodded. Because of Miss Granger's excellent answer, Gryffindor will get 5 points. The little witch was very happy to get the extra points. After sitting down, She couldn't help but raise her head to Ivan, as if to say, "Look, I can get extra points too." Chapter 46 Gamp's Law. Wizards can't conjure up delicacies out of thin air, nor can they turn other things into food. Even if you eat it, you can't absorb the nutrients, but will suffer from indigestion. Professor McGonagall ignored the two little ones flirting and continued. But if you already have some food, you can transform it and make it bigger. Just like at the matriculation dinner. The reason why there is food on the plate is not because it is conjured, but because the house elves cooked it and then transferred it to the container on the table through the relocation spell. Even Hermione didn't know this, which solved a little doubt in her heart. As for what house elves are, Hermione only thought they were employees and chefs hired by Hogwarts, and didn't think of them as servants at all. Secondly, there is no permanent transformation between living things and dead things. McGonagall. We can turn a button into a scarab, but it cannot move forever. Once the attached magic power dissipates, it will return to a button. In addition, even if the transformed scarab has a breath of life, its essence is still a button. If you feed it to a bird, it will not fill its stomach, but will choke to death. This also involves the problem of food transformation. Transfiguration cannot create magical items, such as automatic feather pens, variable temperature crucibles, and even gold galleons. The currency circulating among wizards has been enchanted by goblins. It will not oxidize, is not easily destroyed, and has the ability to automatically identify and count. After saying so much in a row, Professor McGonagall cleared his throat and continued. Fourth, transfiguration cannot change the quantity. That is, you can't turn a table into 2 deer or turn 3 feather pens into a shovel. But there is an exception. If the connected objects become a whole, they can be changed by total transfiguration. And even if they are turned back, it will not affect the arrangement and attachment of the original objects. That is to say, if I turn Mr. Potter and Mr. Weasley, who are wearing clothes, into a wild deer now, and then change him back, his clothes will still not stick to his body like fur. Harry and Ronald, whose names were called, instantly felt the malice from the older cat girl. They were so scared that they couldn't help shrinking their heads, and secretly said that they must never be late for the transfiguration class in the future. Finally, and most importantly, transfiguration cannot create something out of nothing. Perhaps you have seen senior students use their wands to conjure up a flock of flying birds or a bouquet of flowers, but these are definitely not transfiguration. McGonagall said, "Those things may just be limited-time entity projections summoned by spells, or they may have been changed and hidden in the palm of their hands." Ivan listened very carefully and summarized his doubts about the 5 exceptions. Does anyone have any questions? After McGonagall finished speaking, there was silence in the classroom, and even Hermione didn't have anything to ask. Sure enough, I still have to rely on you. Looking at the expectant eyes of Dean Cat, Ivan knew it was time for him to take action. Professor, I have a question. When the little wizards saw that it was Ivan, their surprised eyes immediately became relieved. It has only been 2 days since the start of school, and the first-year wizards have already known Ivan's talent. This is a genius, different from their style of painting. What's the question? You just said that it's about the transformation between living things and dead things. Ivan asked. What I want to know is, if a beetle is transformed into a button, how does the beetle maintain its life state during the transformation? Not to mention eating and drinking, just breathing, a beetle that is turned into a button should suffocate to death. However, according to the principle of transfiguration, the beetle can be restored by casting a counterspell on the button. Interestingly, even after 1 or 2 hours, the beetle is still alive. So the question is, why is the beetle still alive? Yes, doesn't the beetle that is turned into a button need to breathe? The little wizards seem to have never thought about this question, even if their parents have performed similar transformations between dead and living things in front of them. Good question. Professor McGonagall nodded slightly. She appreciated Ivan's perspective on the problem. Magic is the power of the mind, and advanced transfiguration can give emotions to dead things. Although turning a beetle into a button is something that will be learned in the future, McGonagall still gave Ivan an answer in advance. The answer is simple because of thoughts. During the transformation process, The wizard's idea was to turn the beetle into a button, not to kill it. Magic can read the wizard's subconscious thoughts and maintain the life of the creature when it turns into a dead object. They don't need to...
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.